Hello there, and welcome to Tales of the Force, a place for fans to tell their Star Wars stories. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. This month, I will be specifically highlighting stories of fans that are also wanting to share about their mental health journey. Because of this added personal component, these stories will go over the normal episode time. Joining me today is Layne. Layne was born in 2000 and has been a Star Wars fan since forever. He started toy photography when The Force Awakens released in theaters and then started posting his photos in 2018 on Instagram as Galactic Photography 66. He was diagnosed as autistic when he was young. Star Wars, its characters, and its toys have been an integral part of his journey and have helped with understanding the world we live in. Don't forget, this is Layne's personal story. It is not my place on the show to dismiss, diminish, judge, or have an opinion on his story. Any views, thoughts, or opinions expressed are his own. Any comments on this episode and story are expected to be respectful. With all of that out of the way, please join me in welcoming Layne to Tales of the Force. Hey, Layne, how are you?
Good.
How are you doing today? Having a good day?
I am, as I tell pretty much everybody, I'm mostly functional. Mostly functional.
That's great. There's a podcast that I listen to sometimes about having ADHD, and she always says, I'm caffeinated, medicated, and ready to start the day, or something like that.
Yeah, caffeine is a big factor when it comes to
Yes.
my functioning on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, definitely. I feel you there. So thank you so much. First, I just want to say thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited, especially as this month of May being mental health awareness, really wanting to focus on stories that people were just really open about their mental health, like just initially, and that being a factor of what they wanted to share. And so yeah, thanks for coming on. And I know that can be kind of a very personal and raw thing to talk about. So I just wanted to thank you so much for being willing and eager to come on the show.
Well, thank you for having me on. I've been looking forward to it since we've been planning, and this is very much something that's like out of my wheelhouse normally to do. Like I'm not usually the in front of the camera person. I'm the behind the camera doing the things person, so it's something that
Yes.
is really new, like for me recently, but that I've really enjoyed doing, like some little things kind of like this. So thank you for having me on.
Of course. Of course. Hey, I think it's always good for us to try different things. It can be a little weird sometimes going out there. I mean, me doing this at all it's kind of how I feel. But everybody that's come on or has messaged me or offered any kind of advice, like this community has been so welcoming and it has blown me away, honestly. I didn't know what to expect. So it's
Yeah,
been good.
yeah,
So,
it's
would you like to tell everybody about how you got into this amazing fandom of Star Wars?
sure. It's really, I don't remember a time without Star Wars. I'm one of those stories. I was born in 2000. So, I mean, there were a couple prequels that came out after I was born, but I didn't really remember them. My grandparents, as I've been told, did take me to go see Revenge of the Sith when I was in theaters, but I wasn't really old enough to remember it because I was 4, because I wouldn't have turned uh 5 yet. But and then we
Yeah.
had to leave once they got to Mustafar and Obi-Wan and Anakin battled, because we all know how that battle ends, and as a 4-year-old that was That was a no-go.
Too
So
much.
that was too much. But whenever I was older, that, it was fine. But it's just Star Wars has really always just been there. Like, it was Star Wars, and even though this does go a little bit from the galaxy far, far away, it was Star Wars and Jurassic Park. Like, those were me whenever I was younger.
Yeah.
It was just constant,
Yeah.
like, watched them all the time, played with the toys all the time, recreated the scenes all the time. Like, I would just all the time. It was watch the movies, and then we are recreating the scenes beat for beat in the living room. It's like, you're here, you're Leia, you're Luke, I'm Han. This is where I'm at, this is where you're at, and we're doing this. Like, this is what we're doing. And it was just like, it's weird to think about, because I really don't know, like, when I first saw Star Wars, or what my first like introduction was. It might have been like Return of the Jedi, because I know whenever I was younger, that was always my number one. Like, if I was going to watch a Star Wars movie, it was
Mhm.
Return of the Jedi. Um, and so it really has just kind of always been there. Everybody in my family is kind of, the Star Wars fans, the nerdy types. So I come by it honestly. It was just kind of
Yeah.
a the Force, just it had to happen. It was in it
It
was in the will
did.
of the Force, so it
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 willed
was
it to
there.
be.
Yeah, it had to happen.
I love it. I don't know, that's something that I personally find so fascinating about Star Wars is how it's not just a generational, because we talk about like how it's a generational thing and it moves from one generation to another, but that it is such, to me, a cultural phenomenon in itself, that like there are people like both of us, because I'm the same way, that doesn't not remember having Star Wars in their life. Like, it is just something that it was a part of it from the beginning. And
Yeah,
so I don't know, like, I just find that so fascinating, because yes, people like things like Marvel and different things, and they love the superheroes and they'll read the books and the comics and watch the movies, but I don't know if I've found that in another fandom where you just grew up with it. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
to
and it
me,
was
it
just
just
present.
seems
Like,
unique.
yeah, yeah, because it was just
Yeah.
always like, it's
I don't
like
know. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just like wanting Star Wars to be that unique.
it's like
But I
1977
just I
happened, and
just
it's
feel like
just,
there's just something special about it.
yeah, no, I really feel like I feel the same, because like like you said, like, you have your Marvel friends and your DC fans, that they are dedicated, like, fan bases, that they have been there, and they are solid fan bases. But like Star Wars, I feel like it is the next level up of, like, we are here, like, it's been here, and it's just like, oh, it's just Star Wars. Like, yeah, duh, it's here. Like, how can it not be? It has a spot right here in life, and it stays there permanently.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it would be so interesting. Like, I know a little bit about what it feels like to not think you're getting anything more from Star Wars, like just a little bit, because I remember watching the original movies when I was a kid, and I remember there not being anything else. And then I remember the excitement that there was going to be more. And I was 10 when the Phantom Menace came out. And so, I mean, I was still a kid, but I do still kind of vaguely remember loving those movies and like just thinking that's all there was. Like, as a
Yeah,
kid, like, not that there was something else coming down the pipeline or anything like that, but to be a fan, like as an adult or as a teenager when the originals came out, like, it's just another level of,
yeah,
they know what it feels like to think that Star Wars was done, besides comics and books, and but on the screen, they thought it
yeah,
was done, and that was all they were gonna get, and it's just cool to see people get so excited about more projects coming out, and then like the Phantom Menace being re-released and everyone being excited to go see that in
Yeah.
theaters again, and then knowing there's kids that have never seen it and they're going to see it for the first time in theaters. I don't know. It gives
Yeah,
me all the happy feels.
it is really, really exciting. Phantom Menace, I am really excited to go back and get to see it in theaters. But I did get to go see it in theaters when they did that 3D like re-release thing they did of it. Like I don't even remember what year it was, but they did that like
Okay.
3D version of it that like
Yeah.
they had started with the prequels, and then I don't think they did it. I don't think they did Attack of the Clones. I think they stopped with Phantom Menace, but they did like a 3D like release of it, and I did get to go see it then. But that's a little different because like you have like the 3D glasses on, and things are a little different. So, but I'm really, really, really excited to go see it. Like this is just how it was, when it came out, and so that is really, really exciting.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, I don't know. Seeing any Star Wars movie to me on the big screen is like
It's like I'm
exciting.
good.
Like
Yeah,
I
it's
get
like
like giggly like a little kid.
yeah, that's me every time. It's like I've pre-ordered tickets. Like I know when I'm getting there.
Same.
Like I'm up like if I'm going to a morning showing and like I'm up like 4 hours before I need to be because I'm like it's Star Wars Day. It is only Star Wars Day. It is Star Wars all day because we're going to
Yes.
the movies and we're seeing Star Wars, and then coming home and
Yes.
watching more Star Wars.
Yes. Because
Like
you're on
it's
that
just
like Star Wars high. You want more,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. I'm like and
I
then
don't think when the sequels came out, I couldn't sleep the night before they came out because I was so
right,
nervous. I was like, what is gonna happen?
like
Like
right,
what is people's reactions gonna be? Am I gonna like this? Like I
like
don't know, I was just nervous.
yeah, no, and that was like my first time really getting to see like and remember seeing new Star Wars in theaters was when Force Awakens came out.
Yeah.
Since I don't really remember like Revenge of the Sith. Um, but so that was like really, really big. Was like, hey, there's new Star Wars, and I get to go watch it on the big screen. And then we had all of those years following with like Rogue One, and then we had Last Jedi, and then Solo, and then all this like Star Wars movies and Star
Yes.
Wars movies and Star Wars movies. Like what is happening? Like it goes from
I know.
like just
It's
such
what
a
a
Star
time
Wars
to be alive,
explosion,
right?
right? Like and just remembering like all the anticipation for each of those, like and going like more
Yes.
new Star Wars, more new Star Wars, more new Star Wars.
It was like every year, wasn't it? Because it was
Yeah,
like 2 years in between some of the like trilogy movies, and then in
yeah,
between that they had
yeah. They'd like
Rogue
filled
One
in
and
with like
Solo.
yeah. So it was like every year we had Star Wars. Like this is incredible.
Yeah, which was great. And I enjoyed it, but I am glad they're kind of slowing it down a little.
Yeah, yeah. Because we that was a lot of Star Wars, and we want a lot of Star Wars, but we want to make sure that Star Wars. I always think needs to also feel special. Yeah,
Yes.
but I don't want it to be like the MCU where it's like, oh, we have 3 Star Wars movies this year that is covering this, this, and this. Like, I want it to still feel like an event. Like, I want it to feel like it's
Yes.
special. Like,
Yes.
we get to go here and we get to enjoy this, and then we get to go all just go talk about it and share about it and celebrate it and enjoy it and do all the things.
And then build up the excitement for whenever the next is going to be.
Yeah, and just
Because
like
I
we
think
just keep
even
it.
with like the Marvel movies, people were kind of like, oh, another one? Like, I just saw one. Like,
Yeah, it's like we had one like two
it
months
was,
ago.
I think they're going to hopefully, I don't know. I think that was a lesson learned on both sides. So
Yeah,
hopefully, they do slow it down a little. And I think they are. And I don't know. I've been overall happy with everything. I mean, obviously, everybody's going to have like their critiques or things that they wish were different,
right.
or story beats that they wish either weren't there or could have been in there or whatever. But overall, I've been very happy with everything.
Yeah,
So
you
I
know,
can't I
I
can't really complain.
Right. I am here to just enjoy this franchise that we all love. Like we all love Star Wars. Like
Yes.
that's why we're all in this fan group. That's we all love it. We all enjoy it, and that's always like my thing is like I just want to go in and I want to enjoy it. Like that's what I'm there to do. Like it's okay if I don't like it, it's okay if you don't like it. Like we're all just here to just we all love this galaxy far, far away. Like we all love the characters
Yeah.
in it, and like we can all appreciate even in the things that might not be like exactly what we were hoping. Like they're still in that universe we love. Like so we can find things to appreciate in all
Yes.
of this.
Yes. It's like having a big, yummy family meal. Like, you might not like grandma's cornbread casserole or whatever, but it doesn't mean she didn't put her heart and soul into it. It's just
Right.
not your favorite dish.
Yeah, but you might really, really
But
love
your
like
cousin
her
might really
dessert.
love it.
Yeah, and you might really like her dessert that your cousin doesn't like. And but you're still at the same dinner and
Exactly.
you all still love grandma.
You're right. Oh man. That's I don't know. I think that yes, it's good to have expectations and yes, it's good to want something to be the best that it can be. But we also have to know at the end of the day, it's still art and art is still subjective
Yeah.
to an extent. And so something that you might consider bad might just be a taste thing and it just might be something different. And I've talked with other people about how there are some movies that like are universally considered bad movies, but they still have cult followings and people still love them even
Right.
though they're not good movies.
Right.
I'm not saying any of the Star Wars movies are like that, but there's some like comedy movies that you're like, this is awful, but it like people love it, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, it is. Like and there's so many of those that you're like this is atrocious. Like everything about this is none of this works. But
Yes.
still just with how little it works, you just love it so much.
Yes, yes. So it's a taste thing, I guess. I don't know, but we all have characters and we all have stories that are more important to us and touch us more because of like our lives and our personal history and stories. And so I want it to be able to have room to breathe and grow. And it does make me happy, even if there's something that isn't as personal to me, but just see that be as special to someone else, like a different moment was to me, makes me happy. What are some different moments or characters that you can think of that were really impactful for you in your life through watching Star Wars?
So probably I mean the franchise as a whole was like building blocks for me when I was growing up. And I hadn't mentioned this yet. I meant to mention it earlier in my recap. But when I was very young, I was diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum. At the time, I was diagnosed as
Mm-hmm.
having Asperger's, but of course that's been brought in under the umbrella term as just higher functioning side of autism spectrum. And
Right.
so being social and doing these things like ordering my food whenever I was younger and we would go to a restaurant just did not happen. Like it was
Yeah.
just shut down because that was
Right.
uncomfortable. And one of my biggest constant challenges was school because I wasn't at home. I wasn't with my people. It was, I didn't want to be at school. I wanted to be where I was comfortable and where I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't in this social environment and with these people that I couldn't really be me, me around. And one of my incentives through that was like knowing that my love for Star Wars, there were things that like if I could reach milestones, I could maybe get like a Star Wars Lego set, it was good growth milestones, for me. But going into middle school was probably the hardest, which I think is the hardest for a lot of people. That middle school, high school
Yeah.
range is really hard for a lot of people just because I was changing and everything was all thrown out because I was going into being a teenager. And so the years leading up to that were those couple of years leading up to that were really, really, really difficult. And whenever I was at school, though, the one thing I would do was that whenever I was at school, I wasn't me anymore. I was telling myself, I'm Luke Skywalker. This is an Imperial base. Home is the Rebel base, and I have to get back there with all the intel I've gathered today so that I can help the rebellion. Like, that was my I'm going to get through this. Was I'm no longer Layne. I am Luke Skywalker, and I'm on a mission, and I'm undercover, and all of these people sitting at these desks are just stormtroopers in training. And I'm going through my classes so I can get back home and get all my intel. And that was such a big
Yeah.
part of like getting me through like these difficult times, leading into middle school, was that just being Luke. And not that I felt like I connected the most with Luke, because I feel like in most cases I was C3PO. It was like I'm the one that was like telling teachers like, "Hey, you've got 5 minutes left of class. We have to wrap it up." Like, I would go up and be like, "Hey, there's only 5 minutes left of class. Like, are we staying? Are we going? Like, what are we doing? We need to like do
Yeah.
something."
You're like,
And so,
listen,
like, I'm
there's a
keeping
structure
you there.
here. It
There is a
needs to be
schedule.
followed.
Yeah, there's a schedule. We need to follow it. I am supposed to be at math in 5 minutes, and you have not told us to start packing up our bags yet. So, which one's it gonna be? And so, a lot of the times, I feel like I'm more the C3PO in life, of like the about that you know um but just Luke was, he was just this guy, from nowhere, that is,
Yeah.
trying to make a way here, and do something bigger, and Luke and Leia were always like, and they still are, like, they're my top two. Like, I've got my Leia shirt on,
Oh, I
and
love it.
yeah, I've got my Princess Leia shirt. I've
I
had this
love
shirt
Leia.
forever. I've had this shirt forever.
I love it.
I've had this since like probably before 2019, and like it's like it's not falling apart. And even if it was, I couldn't get rid of it. Like, I can't I can't bring myself to get rid of like anything Leia. Like, I just can't. I have to keep
Yes.
it. And it's just too special. You know. Um, but Luke, just telling myself like, hey, you can, Luke did this, and we know, Luke, of course, had plenty of his struggles, getting from
Yeah.
here to Jedi, and so being able to say like, hey, I'm just going to be Luke today at school, and just telling myself, you're not you right now. We don't have to worry about, the anxiety of being here. We don't have to worry about the fact that we're not at home, that we're not with our, comfort people, that we're not in our comfort place, and that things are all out of whack. And,
Hmm.
we're Luke, and all of these people at these desks are stormtroopers, and we are just here to figure out whatever the Empire's planning so we can get back home and we can get it back to Rebel base. Like, and that was really, really, really one of the biggest things, like, for me growing up, of the impact of Star Wars, was just being able to have that as like a comfort space for me, being able to say,
That you
I
could take
am,
anywhere.
yeah, it wasn't, yeah, there were plenty of times where it wasn't just at school, it was, I'm in the store and it's insanely busy and loud and there's just people everywhere and it's just really, really uncomfortable. And oh, I'm we're out, we're traveling, we're no longer at the store, we just jumped into hyperspace and I'm Luke, and we're sneaking through, an Imperial facility or the Death Star, and these are just all officers and stormtroopers, or, things like that. And it was something that, I could take not just at school, but anywhere that I would feel, overwhelmed or uncomfortable, that I could use that, you know.
I mean, life outside our houses, even inside our houses sometimes, like, it's not very neurodivergent friendly.
Right. No, no.
This world is not set up for people that process things differently or get overstimulated by different things. Like, it's a very loud, it's a very textured, it's a very rough environment, and it's nothing stays the same.
Right.
It's
And
always changing, and
yeah,
that can be very difficult. And so while, like, I'm not on the autism spectrum, I do have ADHD, which is neurodivergent just in a different way. Yeah, I masked a lot too, like growing up. Um I didn't consciously say, maybe in my mind, like, I'm going to be Leia today, but I definitely looked up to Padme a lot when I was a teenager, and like her bravery and confidence. It might not have been as conscious, but like I remember reciting her speech in front of the mirror, and her facial expressions, and how she was very stoic and very put together. And, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be like her. And I wanted to be like Leia, who was very quick on her feet and had like all the quick, like funny, snarky things that she could say fast. And so I became a very sarcastic person. And it was like a self-defense mechanism, honestly. And so while it wasn't maybe as conscious, I definitely did something very similar to fit into my surroundings in a more like unconscious way. So
yeah,
I do feel that on the level that I can. I understand that 100%.
yeah. And it is weird. Like it definitely remains like a safe space for me. Um, Growing
Yeah.
up, thankfully, my parents when we found out I was very young, so my parents have been able to, while I've been growing up, really tailor my learning at home and how to deal with scenarios and situations that are very uncomfortable, and been able to teach me in a way that makes sense so that I can
Yeah.
better process those things, which I'm very thankful for, because otherwise, like, I feel like if I didn't have
Yeah.
that,
That's
I
so
would have been in
important.
an yeah, I feel like I would have been in a very different space if I hadn't,
Yeah.
had that. And it was never a matter of like taking the things that I was passionate about, or my special interests out of it. It was always like, hey, let's figure out a way to incorporate these as a positive way. And
Yeah.
going forward, like one of my big outlets that I found has been photography. I've really I've ever since I did it, like just general photography for the first time, which now I was thinking about last night. I realized I've been doing just like regular photography for like over 10 years, and I'm like, where did that time go? Cuz where did this go? Like when did that happen? Like I don't time is weird. Time is weird.
It
Um
is.
It's
It's so
so
weird.
weird. So I was looking at this, and like I was talking with one of my friends, and I told her, I was like, Force Awakens will be 10 years old next year.
It's insane.
I'm like what has happened? Like what has happened? Um and it's just so weird. But, growing up, aside from like playing out like Star Wars, my
Yeah.
absolute biggest thing was always the toys. Like
Yes.
I had and I had a bunch of like the Clone Wars figures from the series, like the little action figures and stuff they came out with. Um, but and I've told many people this, and their reaction is always, "What?" Is that I have never watched all of Clone Wars. I didn't watch it whenever I grew up, which was weird because I was like crazy, like Star Wars was it for me, and I never watched an episode of Clone Wars when I was growing up. But
I didn't
I'm in
watch it
the
as a kid either. I watched it as an adult.
but I am in the process of watching it now because all my friends that I've talked to have been like, "You really need to watch it. Like, you need to do it." And then like
You
I even
do.
have
Yeah.
I have like on my computer here. I have like I have the Clone Wars Ahsoka with me.
I
Um,
have that too. And
yeah, the
okay,
little
did you know that that one is like rare, I guess?
no,
I saw it on something popped up on my Instagram the other day, and it was like, some of these are found. They were only a Walmart exclusive. So we're selling the ones that we have, and they sold out. And I was like, oh, I have that one. And it's
you're
out
like,
of the box too,
hey,
which I don't care because I'm not a collector. But I was like, I didn't
yeah,
know that
I'm
was a
like,
rarer one.
yeah, no, I am an out of the
It's
box person,
Clone Wars Season 7 Ahsoka coming in hot.
right? And yeah, and so toys, like that, like this, the toys have always been there. Whenever I was a kid, I didn't have a Jabba's palace, but I used a Ninja Turtles sewer playset as my palace for
I
Jabba. So
love
I'd
it.
have little Jabba set up, and all. I mean, it would be like I ran this like a full RPG. It's like I would, if my dad would play or my papa would play, it was I
Yeah.
am keeping track of your credits. Like I'm keeping track of how much money you have. You can take on bounties if you want. Jabba will give you bounties and you'll get more credits. And then you can buy new weapons and all this, and you can buy vehicles. And it was like I ran this like it was like a full RPG. Like kept track of the money and the quests and all this stuff.
That's amazing.
And I look back at it and like now, with like photography and then doing like toy photography like I do now, I've realized like, oh,
Hmm.
I'm just
Which is
doing
incredible, by the way. Sorry to interrupt you, but
thanks.
I just
No, you're
have to
good.
throw that out there. It's so good.
Thanks.
If
It
you have not looked at his stuff, please go look at it. It is so cool.
thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
it's so fun. It is so fun. I've realized like I'm just doing what I did as a kid. I get them out, I take them outside, or I put them on, on my little desk back here with like my little studio with my lights. And I've realized that when I do it, like to get back to like talking about like the safe space and things like that, it is
Yeah.
I can tell when I haven't done any photography or any toy photography because like it affects me because that is my outlet. That's my main thing. If there's crazy stuff going on or if it's stressful, I can come down here. If I'm doing like a picture from with characters from Ahsoka or whatever show or movie,
Hmm.
I like to turn on that soundtrack and just have it in the background while I'm working on it. And the whole time I'm doing it, like going back to like what I did when I was a kid, is I'm just thinking dialogue in my head of like what I'm
Yeah.
setting up. If I have Han and Leia or like Ahsoka and Hera or together in a picture, my while I'm setting it up and while I'm getting things the way I want, I'm just thinking like what are they talking about? What are they doing? Why are they here? I'm thinking about what are they saying and things like that, and I've realized that's just now me doing what I did as a kid. And that was one of my big
Yeah.
comfort things and outlets as a kid was just filling up the entire living room floor with every figure I owned and just having them all stood up and just in places and in scenes and things like that. And I've realized that now I'm just an adult and I have a camera instead of just doing it just for me to see or just for my family to see. It's and now I put the camera with it too and kind of bring those scenes that like I was thinking through as a kid, a little bit more to life than I could then.
I love it. I love people doing creative things, and especially if it's something that, like, I would have never thought about that. And it's just such a cool thing. And also to see how it works so perfectly with like who you are as a person and what makes you you. And it's just so cool to see people find those things and just like blossom with it and use their creativity, and it makes somebody else smile or it makes somebody else be inspired or happy, or remember when they were a kid and they played with the toys and made all these scenes and dramas. And like for me as a like little girl, like if I had wanted Star Wars toys, like, I don't think I really thought about it, but my parents would have gotten them for me. It would have never been like, "Oh, these are boys' toys," or anything like
Right.
that. But I was a big Barbie fan when I was a kid. And I mean, my best friend, who we've known each other since we were 3, and we haven't lived in the same state since we were 12 or 13, but we have stayed best friends since then. And I remember us playing with Barbies and coming up with these like crazy, almost like soap opera stories. And like we never watched anything like that because we were kids, but just the drama
Yeah,
and
you just
all
live
this
for the
stuff. And
drama.
I've
It's
always
just
apologized. Yeah. And we would dress them and we'd have to change them for like this thing that they were doing or they were going to or whatever. And it made me laugh so hard when the Barbie movie came out. And I ended up like, I am also like close to my best friend's younger sister. And we were not the nicest to her when we were younger, and I've apologized to her for that. But we watched the Barbie movie, and my husband and I watched it, and the kid being like, "I'm just Ken," all this stuff, and I thought
yeah.
about how my friend and I never ever wanted to play Ken. Like we always made her younger sister be Ken, and I texted her and was like, just watch the Barbie movie, and I'm so sorry. We always made you begin. Like I felt really bad about it.
Like he's like, and you're like,
But it's
I'm
like
just
not
thinking.
everybody watching that movie picks up on that, but like that's how it was as a little girl. You were like, I don't want to be Ken.
You're
Like
like,
you
that's
make
not who
your
I want to
friend's little
play.
sister do it.
Like, you have weird Barbie, or you have Ken. Like, and you don't know like which one would have been the worst one, weird Barbie or Ken. Like,
I know. And then I grew up to be weird Barbie with like tattoos and doodles on her arms and a nose ring, so it's fine.
it's it's all about the it's just about the journey. It's crazy. It's kind of weird,
Yeah.
to think about, how all those things can come together. And like you were talking about, like how what
Yeah.
people end up doing and how it like connects to like who they are, and I think that's one of my favorite
Mhm.
things about just the Star Wars fan base as a whole, and then especially about like your podcast is being able to hear like each of these people who come from different backgrounds and different places and different things, and just how we've all found this common unity in Star Wars and like in this franchise to do all these,
Yeah.
whether it's cosplayers or artists or music makers or writers or anything, just and how that's influenced and how that's been there and helped shape who they are and what they create and how they create it and why they create it. It's really really interesting, I think, just to see the human side of it.
Yeah, it's like I talk about it a lot, but like the trickle down effect. And it's not just with, we think of positivity. I can always say my words, right? Trickling down or negativity, but it's also that creative spark too. And to see how Star Wars has given other people such an inspiration to be able to follow their passion, even if it's not within the realm of making a movie or working for Lucasfilm one day or being an actor, actress, or screenwriter or whatever, but just like in your everyday life, seeing how that has inspired someone to have courage or to have hope in dark times or to press on through change and to do the right thing, even when it's hard, and to welcome others into your circle because we all need somebody at the end of the day. And I think it's really cool that Star Wars has those stories, and then to see how they, like you were saying, how they affect us. I love talking to people and I love hearing people's stories, and I also love Star Wars. So it just seemed like I don't know, the right thing for me to do with the direction of it was to let people, because I love YouTube and I love social media, and I think that they are great things. I think there are dangers and there are negative things that can come with anything like that. Absolutely 100%. And while I do like those things, I also at the same time didn't want this to seem like a podcast that was just for people who are on YouTube or people who had a big following on social media or people who also had podcasts. Like, I just felt like there was something missing, and maybe I could help with that. And
Yeah,
maybe I could help other people feel like they could share what Star Wars means to them, because I don't think you have to have a huge platform to for your story to be important or for it to touch somebody or for it to make a difference. And so, yeah, I'm glad that resonated with you too, because that's what kind of what I was thinking as well. And
yeah,
yeah, I appreciate that.
yeah. It's really cool. I found I started doing toy photography when Force Awakens came out. I got the Black Series Rey figure, the first one they released from Force Awakens, where she had BB-8 with her and all that stuff. And I got
Yeah.
that figure, and that was one of the first figures I ever did toy photography of. It was Rey and Kylo Ren were the first two toys that I ever took pictures of. Um, and for the longest time, I did not post them anywhere because it was very daunting to me to break into like
Mhm.
that social media space and it be a public space, because I had been on Facebook,
Yeah.
and I had all my family and close friends on there. And even there I didn't really post anything because it was a big step of taking me and putting me outside of comfort zone and outside of safe space because it's into the
Yes.
wide open internet. you know Even on Facebook, when it was just my 25 friends, if even that, it was like, I'm not going to post anything. I'll maybe share a meme every now and then, but I wasn't about to share anything. And so what I decided to do was I took just a bunch of pictures, and I kept taking pictures and still not posting them. And then I
Mhm.
decided one day, I was like, you know what? I think maybe instead of Instagram, I'll put some on DeviantArt, because I was like, that's smaller. It feels less daunting to me. I don't think it won't be like pushed out as much. And that's a good step for me. That's kind of an ease in to jumping into a social media world. And so I shared on there for a little while. And then in 2018, I decided, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm just going to make an Instagram. I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to post something. I'm going to put the phone down. I'm not going to think about it. Because if I sit there and hold the phone, I'm going to overthink this, and it's going to be just a wormhole. And if I just put the phone down, I won't think about it.
Yes.
And funnily enough, the first thing I posted on Instagram was not a Star Wars picture. It was a Jurassic World picture of my toy of the Indoraptor. And then my next one following that was Star Wars. And so, of course, because Star Wars was always my intention, because I went on there and I named
Yeah.
the page then. It wasn't Galactic Photography yet. I think I was like Galactic Figure Photography. Then, because I hadn't like fully settled on a name. So the plan was always Star Wars. I don't know why I started out with the Jurassic World picture first.
Because it was
Because
safer.
it was like, yeah, I guess maybe that might have been what it was. Is like, this isn't as daunting because this isn't like my top level passion. This is like just an interest I've always had, but it's not like this is the thing that's been the most prominent, through my life. But
Yeah.
once I got on there, I wished that I had started earlier, because like the Star Wars community on there and the toy photography community as a whole was just so welcoming and just so constructive and so positive, and it was just really, really cool and really, really helpful, like to see these people that would hop on and follow me. And there's still some people that followed me when I started in 2018 that I regularly talk with on
Yeah.
there. And just to kind of build this community, I found one of my friends that I've talked to and met up with now. I met on there, and they live just a couple hours away from me. We found out, and they, did some toy photography stuff, and we found out like, oh wait, you just live like 2 hours away from where I live. Like that's literally nothing. Like that's so close. So I've met up with
Yeah.
them, a few times, and it's just really really cool to be able to go on there and see all these different artists and all these different creators, and everybody's just so positive and just so encouraging of one another, of just like anybody from entry level to professional comes on there, and it's just so welcoming of like, yeah, you're I can't wait to see what you do, I can't wait to see what we have here. And it's not just great to have been welcomed in, but also to be able to welcome other people in and be like, hey, because I remember going in there and being so nervous and like so anxious to post anything or do anything or share anything, and to be able to go on there and help encourage people, or if anyone has questions, that they're like, hey,
Yeah.
might post in the story like, hey, how do I do this, or what does anybody think about this, to be able to like say like, hey, I think that's really really cool, and do stuff like that is just really really cool to be able to be on the other side of it now that I've gotten more comfortable. Not that sometimes posting things I'm still like shaking to push it, because it's still, there's times where it's still daunting, and I'm like, this is another step
Yes.
of like me and putting me out there, and like especially things where it's like me, like things like this,
Yeah.
which I've been prepped for. We've known for a while like when it was, so I've been able to like prep myself and like be here and things like that. But
Have it
like,
ready.
yeah, and like have and like have myself ready, and like I've thought over this, and like I've like rehearsed it in my mind, like um but
Oh my gosh, I do that all the time.
that's like
But mine
all
is
the
normally
time.
later. I'm like, why didn't I
I
say
should have done
this? Or why
that.
didn't I do that? And I have these like full conversations. Yeah.
Yes, no, I do that, and then I also
Yeah. And
like
I've learned, oh,
it. No, I get it, I get it. It's like, and then when I'm like we talked about earlier, like ordering food, even still now as an adult, I'm like, I need I if I go to a restaurant and like I know what I'm getting because I don't ever get anything else, I'm like, I'm still looking at the menu. I'm still like, okay, this is what I'm having. This is what I'm having. This is what I'm having, and I have to say it like this, and this is what I want to drink, and
yeah.
I still have to rehearse that, because like even all this time later of like going from being a kid who would not talk to anyone, like there
Hmm.
was a time whenever I was in elementary school that the only person I would talk to was the teacher's mom, and she would come in and assist in the classroom like a couple times a week. And the only person I would talk to in that classroom was her. I wouldn't talk to the teacher. I wouldn't talk to any other students. There was a time where
Hmm.
we were doing a craft, and I cut my finger with scissors. Um, and I didn't tell anyone. I just sat there with the cut because I couldn't speak to anyone. It took one of the other students
Yeah.
noticing it to tell them. And I remember, and it's really weird how vivid this memory is like in my mind. I guess just because it's one of those like formative moments for me, like it's there and it still holds. Was that we were having like carpet time where we were all sitting, and it was like discussing a color, like the color red was, I think it was that day, and everybody was supposed to repeat. And I mean, we're talking like, I don't even remember. This might have been like early. Like this was like really really early schooling, because like we were going over like collars and things like that. And I just remember we were supposed to repeat after the teacher, and I did it. I repeated in class with the rest of the group, which I wouldn't normally do. And I remember the kids next to me and like in front of me like turning around because I spoke, because that was not what I did. Like I
Mhm.
was just quiet, I wasn't, and I just remember like that shock of they were like, whoa, like that's weird, like he spoke like that's like not usual. And I remember that so much, and to go from like that kid then who wouldn't talk to anyone unless they were like immediate family members or uh, my teacher's mom, which I guess it was because she had like she was like the classroom grandma, so she was very comforting. She was a very like
Yeah.
nurturing person. She was fine if I sat over there next to her while she was in the rocking chair. That didn't bother her. That I stayed over there away from the rest of the group and over here on my own, in my own space and in my own safe space. And to go from there to like now, I still see like some of those things, and they're obviously better, and I know how to handle, how I feel better now, and I know my social battery, and I know how much I have, and when it's like I have this much, and then I know once we get like here, we gotta wrap it up, or we gotta find a quiet space, or just a space away that I can stay for a few, because once this drains, there's no bringing it back up. If we can
Mm-mm.
kind of maintain it, but once it's empty, it's not going back up until I'm home. There's no building that back up. And you
Yeah.
know
And it's a lot more intensive to, I think, when you have someone who is like not neurodivergent, like they can take a nap or sleep at night and then they might be better the next day.
yeah,
But it seems like from what I've observed with people that I know that are also on the spectrum, that it's like a set of things that like you have to do, and then that slowly builds that battery back up. And I could be
yeah.
wrong. You can correct me if I'm
No,
wrong.
no,
But
that's
that's what it seems like. Yeah.
yeah, no, that's very true, because like there is a process for me. It's like, once it's to that point where it's like out, i I just don't,
Yeah.
I don't have anything left to give. Like if I've gone to a place and it's just out, I don't. And a big thing for me is music,
Mhm.
to help me get into like a space where I can, like, whether it's a soundtrack or one of my playlists with a bunch of different stuff on it, or whatever it is. Music is always a really really big thing for me. So being able to find like a quiet spot and just put my headphones in or my earbuds in and not hear what's out there and only hear what I need to hear at that moment is really really helpful. Just not not hearing all of whatever's going on, or
Yeah.
things like that. um and then it's a matter of like, if I'm not at home, it's a matter of like getting back home, and then getting comfy clothes on and just being quiet, just not doing really anything of major consequence. It's just, I'm just going to go over here in my spot or in my room, and I'm just going to relax, and I'm just going to find something to watch or to listen to, and sit in the dark with my fan on. So it's just give me cool, dark nothingness. Just put me in a cave, and I'll just slowly
Yes.
slowly recharge. It's like I just want my cave, and then I'll get there. Just not a dark side cave, just a dark cave. I don't want to have any weird crazy force visions of myself as Darth Vader, but
No.
um but um it's weird, and there's days where it's like, oh, I could go for like hours and I'm fine. And then there's some days where I wake up and I'm like, yeah, I've got 40 good minutes in me of craziness, and then we're done for the, we're done for the day. But
Yeah.
it,
Have you
it
heard of
helps.
the spoon theory before?
Yes. Yes, and like you have this, that's the way, it's like you have this many spoons for the day, right? And so like each thing takes like, you could take one
Mhm.
spoon or two spoons. Yeah, and that, very very accurate.
I
Like I
feel
feel like
like it's
that's,
such a good way to visually explain whether it's either like mental illness or neurodivergency, like it's such a good way to explain that to somebody that doesn't understand, because I can tell somebody all day long that it's hard for me to take a shower, but they don't understand why it's mentally hard. It's because of
Yeah.
all the steps, or like doing the laundry. It's all that overwhelms my brain. It's not just doing one task and checking it off. It's, you're taking a shower, you have to get undressed. I might be very comfortable in my clothes, you have to get undressed. You have to get the water temperature right. You have to get in the shower. You have to be comfortable. You have to, whatever your routine is, do all of those things, and then get out and be cold and dry off, and then put lotion and, whatever you do all over again. And it's like a long process. And to some people, it's just you get in the shower, you take a shower, you get out, and you're done. Like, those steps don't add up. It's just one big task. And so I have found with the spoon theory that is an easy way for me to say, okay, well, maybe taking a shower is like not even a spoon for you. Like, maybe a spoon for you is waking up in the morning, doing your morning routine, taking a shower, and going to work. Like, maybe that for you is a spoon, but a shower can be 2 spoons
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
And it's a good visual reminder to people of, okay, this task might be easy for you, but it takes this many things away from me in my life and gets my battery, like you were saying, like your battery down to nothing. And I think it's just like a great way to explain to people how, whatever it is, whether it's being on the autism spectrum, whether it's having ADHD, whether it's anxiety, depression, or a mixture of some and all, or anything. I love that concept because
Yeah.
I think it takes like an easy, ordinary object that you see every day, and you can put value in it, and you can explain to people, like, this is why I'm tired. This is why maybe I forget to not text you back. Or this is why I retreat and I need time away because it takes me doing these things to get these spoons back. Like, I can't just sleep and get all my 7 spoons back. I have
Yeah.
to, like you were saying, recharge in a certain way. And I just love that theory. So I was wondering if you had heard of it. So
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's a perfect way to showcase it. And, like you were talking about how like sometimes sleeping doesn't refill it, like there was a week a couple weeks ago that, I had like a trip out of town, and then before that I had other stuff going on, and then I had this going on, and then I had stuff going on when I got back. And I just remember like
Mhm.
that entire week I did not recoup because like it was I had a couple days out of town and on the road, and then I came back home and I had maybe a day off, but then after that I was right back into busy again, and so I do remember that was like really hard, and I was like the whole time I was like I am just exhausted. Like I would get up and I was like I feel like I barely have energy to get out, like roll out of bed, like and it's because it was just so much, just like boom, 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 and then small break, and then boom, 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 because there just wasn't, I didn't have enough downtime, between those
Yeah.
to get me back up to here. It was like I got from here to here, but I wasn't back up to here. And then, being here is enough to like get up and make sure I've had lunch and make sure I've eaten
But
dinner.
it doesn't really give you a
But
lot to like go
yeah,
through
but
the day and then have more depleted.
right, and then yeah, because then in the middle, in between, like, okay, I've eaten lunch, and I just go to my chair and I just sit there, and I'm like, oh, okay, now it's 4 o'clock because I was just gone. Time just didn't exist because I had nothing. It was just gone,
Yeah.
and thankfully, that following week I was able to recoup and get back to usual, but it was just crazy because it had been a while since I had gotten to that point of like that been that much out because of where, I've really tried to be, especially more recently. It's been kind of like a weird, I feel like, recent development for me of like trying to be more aware of how much I have. Like I've always kind of known my
Mm-hmm.
boundaries of like I have this much in me, I could do this much this day. But I've really tried to be like I've really tried to be a good budgeter of how much I have in a day, a lot more lately than I had. Um, and
Yeah.
I don't really know what spurred it. Like I don't know if it was just me or if it was just something else, but it's just something that I've really tried to do more consciously lately. Is just try to be a little better budgeted, so I make sure that going forward I have enough to do the things I want to do in that day.
Yeah. And the things that you also enjoy doing, because sometimes if your battery gets too depleted, you don't even enjoy doing the things that you want to do
Yeah,
in the time that you have left that
yeah,
can help
and
you recharge or feel better. And so that's a hard balance to do as well. Do you think with doing the photography, the toy photography, that you were able to learn more about yourself through doing that, and even kind of like reprocess things from being even a kid when you played with toys and different memories that you might have? I know that's kind of a two-part question,
yeah,
but I've found things do that to me and trigger different things and make me think about things again or learn more about myself. So I was just curious if that like creative outlet that you have, if that does that for you as well.
I would say it does, like, because I know that I've always been kind of I was always like a storytelling kid. Like it was like we talked about with the toys, like when I would pull them, like get them all out on the floor. It wasn't just we're gonna set this up and we're gonna have a big battle. It was you have your quests and you have your money and you have, all of these things you can pick up, and so I've always been a storytelling like person. And of course, like I've always wanted to be able to like put to like visual like some of the ideas and stories that I've had, and a lot of some of those things that like thing are things that I've had or wanted to do since I was like a kid, I've been able to do. Like growing
Mm-hmm.
up, I always really wanted like a cool X-wing for like my little 3 3/4 inch figures and stuff. And um I did have an X-wing, but it was one that like it had lights and it had sounds and it was really cool and I really did love the thing. But it was like Luke was in the ship, but he wasn't removable. He was just like in there and it was just part of it.
Mm,
And it
yeah.
was super cool, but I always wanted one that I could put whoever I wanted in there because I always just imagined like
More versatility.
yeah, and I always imagined in my mind like just this X-wing with a bunch of characters around it like in the rebel hangar, on Yavin. And I went on a trip earlier this year and I had traded in some figures I didn't want anymore. I've been going through and like some of like my older Black Series figures that I just don't use and that I have not used or not looked at. I don't want them to just sit and waste away in my drawer. I want them to be
Yeah.
loved and continue to be loved by someone who will. So I've been going through and getting rid of some of those. And so I took them up to this shop with me and to trade them in. And I got there, and the moment I walked in, I looked at the Star Wars section, and there was Luke's X-wing in a box, and it was just the ship with like the wings open up and the ship opens up and you can put whoever you want in it. And I thought, I'm not leaving here without that. That was my first. I was like, well, I can't leave without it. That's the one I wanted when I was younger. I can't walk out of this building without it. And so,
Yes.
handed my figures over for the shop owner to look at and see what he wanted out of, if anything, and did all that. And meanwhile, here I am with this like box, and I'm like carrying it around like this throughout the store. I'm like, I'm not putting this down. There's like 3 of them up there, but I am not putting this one down because
Mm.
it is mine. I
You're
am
like,
claiming it.
this is mine.
This one's mine, and nobody can have it. And so that was one of those things of like, that was a dream item for me when I was younger. And being
Yeah.
able to like fill that gap as like an adult now, like I had the ship and I was holding it and I was like in the living room and just like flying it around the other day because like it was a spot filled that I always wanted filled, and it was just
Yeah.
really, really cool to be able to do that. And then after I got it and I brought it home, I was finally able to do that idea I had always had as a kid with the X-Wing and being in the hangar and stuff. And so I got a picture from Battlefront 2, a screenshot from the game of the Yavin base, the inside of the Yavin base, and I put it on the TV that's behind the curtains behind me and did like a
Yeah.
digital backdrop thing with it, and I was finally able to do that. And so it was one of those cases of like,
Oh.
hey, this is one of my ideas I always had whenever I was younger and thought would be really cool, and then I got to finally make it happen, and using some of these figures that I've had since I was
Full
a kid.
circle moment.
Yeah, and like the C3PO
Yeah.
in the picture, he's a vintage collection C3PO, but I've had him since I was the age that I wanted that X-wing. So I had
Mm.
C3PO in the picture with it, the one that I played with and had set up all the time when I would do my living room floor setups, or wherever I was at.
I love it.
And I was like, this is the C3PO when I was younger. He's just this tall and is like, and here he is and he's in this picture, and it's just really, it was like a weird moment for me because I'm like, huh, like I didn't know how to process it at first because I was like, when I got it
Mm-hmm.
and like I brought the X-wing home and I had it out, I was like, this is weird because it's like it was like, this is a really, really weird feeling that I don't know how to process because it's like I was
Yeah.
super excited to have it, but it was like, huh, like I've like checked off like a, I don't know, like a box that's been unchecked for like 12 years.
Yeah.
Half of my age since it's been like unchecked, and like, and now it's checked, and now I just need a bunch of more X-wings so I can just have a whole arm, I can just have a whole fleet of them. And then no, I
That would
don't need
make a
that many.
cool picture.
I don't need that many X-wings. That would be very bad. Because at some
I
point,
mean, Pose is pretty cool.
yeah, it is, and that one was up there. Pose was up there, and that was really,
Mm-hmm.
really tempting. But I'm trying to think. I can't remember because I can't remember in Vintage Collection if we have Poe in his pilot outfit. I can't remember. It's weird. The amount of my mind that is dedicated to just useless Star Wars toy knowledge is scary.
Hang, but but you could be like an encyclopedia page someday for people that are like
it's
questioning, like,
it's
hey,
like,
what about this? You're
what
like, oh, I got you. I know
oh,
this.
I know where that's from. And then it's like it's like I have Star Wars and Star Wars toy knowledge, and then there's like SpongeBob references, and then there's actually important knowledge. And it's like just a corner back
Hey,
here, and then the
I
rest
think
is all
that's a good
SpongeBob
mixture. I
references
don't I don't
and
I don't know why
Star
anybody
Wars.
would think that's not a good mixture. I love SpongeBob. SpongeBob's
I know.
great.
I know, it's so good. It's like the amount of times, and I know this isn't
No,
Star Wars, but
okay, I don't want to be that person, but the new SpongeBob animation is weird. I don't
it's
like it.
weird and it's not the same. It's like my favorites were always the earlier episodes. Like the first like
Yeah.
4 or 5 seasons, I feel like, because that's like what I watched the most when I grew up, was like that was like my favorite. And it's like the amount of times that I'm like having issues at home and like my first thought that pops in my head is like, have you tried setting it to Wumbo? It's like my computer's not working. I'm like, have you tried setting it to Wumbo? Like, I don't know.
That's great.
That's just
I
like
love it. I don't
that's
know,
just
and
what popped in
I
my
guess
head.
it's just like I guess it's just animation has changed, and yes, it might not be my favorite, and it's not the same as what it was when I was a kid, but I know it is so much harder to keep kids' attention these days, and
Yeah.
so I'm sure it's hard for them to pay attention to something that's not more almost CGI than like old school, I guess you could say old school animation
Yeah.
because um they have so much more that they do. Like we had like for me, and I'm older than you are, like we didn't have tablets, we didn't have phone, like we when we were a kid. And so like it was us outside in our imagination.
Yeah.
And that was about it, and any toys that you had. And so there was some TV, but not like a lot of TV, and it wasn't like the screens weren't what they are now. And so I understand that things have to adapt and they have to change. And I saw the new trailer for the like Mufasa Lion King movie,
Yeah.
I guess, that just got announced. And I was looking at the comments, which I try not to do because I know I'm always going to be like sad. But somebody was like, this is I would have liked this so much better if it was just regular old school animation. And in my mind, I'm thinking, yes, maybe same for me too. And then I was thinking about the other kids, like the kids that this is made for kids. Like it's not
Right.
made for us, even though a lot of people our age and other ages will go see these animated movies of different sorts and they still enjoy them, but like it's still being geared to kids. And so somebody said in the comments like, "Hey, but this is what kids like." Like they probably wouldn't be into the our old school animation as much as this like CGI animation. And I thought, like that's so right. And that's such a good reminder that things are going to change and they're going to evolve, like we've talked about before, and it's going to be a little bit different. But you got to attract new generations to things, or it's the business
Yeah.
of it. It's going to die
Right.
out and no one's going to make
Right.
any more new things.
Yeah. And and that's it's actually funny that like you mentioned that because I actually had this conversation with somebody just like a couple like literally not even a week ago. Talking about Star Wars and like because we have the Acolyte coming up, which I'm super super excited about. We just have plenty of things on coming down the pipeline that we'll get to have. And we were just kind of talking about the franchise, and I was talking about it. I was like, I don't always want Star Wars to be made for me. I know there was Star Wars that
Hmm.
was aimed at me and this side of the fan base, but I I don't want it to always be because I want it to be accessible
Yeah.
to everybody. Like, they have the Young Jedi Adventures, which is like I think it's on like their Disney Junior show. That's not
Hmm.
made for me, but it's for those kids
Yeah.
and they get a first introduction to Star Wars. It's made for them. There's Star Wars that I don't always need it to be like, oh, this would be something I would want to watch. And I don't want everything to be stuff that's like, oh, I want to watch this. I want it to be able to be appreciated by just anybody who can appreciate it. Like, because
Yeah.
like you said, I don't want it to get stagnant and do the same thing because when it just keeps staying the same, it's just going to sink and it's just going to get lower and lower and it'll just keep going to the bottom of the pile and it won't come back up. And I don't want
Yeah.
that to happen with Star Wars. I want it to keep growing and I want it to keep changing and being, fresh and new for the people who are making it and the people who are watching it and, the world we're in. I want it to continue to grow and adapt. And because I feel like that's what Star Wars
Yeah.
has always done. It's always been, when the original trilogy came out, it was, three pretty much brand new faces, that were kind of thrown here with, Han, Luke, and Leia. We had three almost, brand new faces, that were there. And I think that that's just always been the spirit of Star Wars is to say, here's something fresh and here's something new. The prequels and how George used technology to push the development of those and used things that are used on just like regular TV shows now. You can have like
Yeah.
just like a doctor drama that's going to use blue screen and green screen stuff now. That George was pioneering and building entire environments in.
I mean,
You know,
yeah, 1080p. We wouldn't have 1080p if it wasn't for the prequels.
right? And it's things like that like Jon Favreau developed, and helped develop technology like the volume for Mando that has pushed
Mm-hmm.
forward. And it's not just used in Star Wars anymore; it's been used in a bunch of stuff. I feel like that has always been the nature of the franchise, is to say, here's where we're at now, but here's where we can be, and here's what we can do. And I think that is absolutely the best thing the franchise can do with not just its technology, but with its characters and its planets and its ideas and its stories, is just to keep pushing into territory to show like, we may be right here right now, but we can be more. We can continue to grow, and we can continue to do things that
Yeah.
are, more and
Yeah.
more and more. And I always I just never want it to stay the same, because it the world, and as much as I don't like change, but the world doesn't stay the same. And I've
Mm-hmm.
learned that there is, even though young me would disagree heavily, there is a lot of value in change sometimes. Sometimes there is no value in
Mm-hmm.
change and it's bad. There's changes that are bad, but
Yeah.
there are changes that I've found that I'm like, okay, I'm not comfortable with this right now, but then later on I was able to look back and go, but that was really good that it happened, you know. And I
And
don't,
sometimes it sucks and sometimes it hurts. But then you look back at it later and you're like, I needed that.
yeah,
Even if it was really hard. Like, you look back and you see that you wouldn't be where you are today without that change.
yeah,
And I think we see that, like you said, in Star Wars too. Like, not just with the technology and with how they're doing it, but with the stories too. It's just all so relatable.
yeah. And I think it's really important, that we have that, as a just a place for people to be able to go and see like, oh, you know, this is here and this is here, because the galaxy is so huge, and there is just
Hmm.
so many stories to tell, and there is just so many people and so many cool little corners of the galaxy that we can go to. And I
Yeah,
want
and more galaxies now.
yes, and now we're in another galaxy, so there's even more. And it's like, I just
Spoiler alert,
yeah,
sorry. No.
yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Here,
It's been
we'll
long
just
enough, I think we're okay.
yeah, we'll just get Ahsoka here to stare at us. I like to do this. I like to put her really close. I know anybody that's listening isn't going to see this, but I like to put them really close to the camera and do that. But it's
Ahsoka is creeping on us.
it's like how Kylo's over here creeping on us. There, you can't. There's a TIE fighter over here. I can't put my finger. There's a TIE fighter over here
Oh, I love
somewhere.
it. Yeah.
Next to the TIE fighter is an ATST, but I don't really know if you can see it or not. But um, it
Got the
yeah,
full setup. I love it.
yeah, I got
Hey, I have
my
Kylo back here too.
yeah, there he is. Look, and he doesn't have the helmet on, and then he had the helmet's over here.
It's
It
perfect.
just it just it's like poetry. It rhymes, to quote
Right.
Let's bring you over a little bit, Kylo. There you go. But yeah, I have a little VHS box that has some other people in it. I've got Thrawn and Hu Yang.
Oh, Thrawn.
Um,
I love it.
but yeah, I always
And I
always
love
bring
Hu
figures with me.
Yang.
I know, and it looked like this little vintage. Oh, okay. I thought I dropped a lightsaber on the floor, and that wouldn't have been good. But it's fine. No lightsabers are being lost to any vacuums or floor monsters today. But this little Hu Yang is so good.
Oh, I love it.
And like on the backpack, again, sorry for anybody who's just listening. You're gonna hear a
It's
lot about
okay.
Hu Yang, but
We
you're
can
not.
tell
You could
them.
just Hu Yang. I'm hoping. And if you don't, you can learn about him in Clone Wars and Ahsoka. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but the little arms pop off of the back, and you can snap ones that are extended, so that like they come up over his shoulder like they do. And so it's got like the
That's
little
so
arms too, and it's
cool.
just so fun. It's just so fun.
I love that.
And then we
I
got
love toys. They're so fun.
I know, and I have everyone's favorite little mischievous droid,
I love
little
Chopper.
chopper, little
He's my
chopper.
favorite
He's so
little murder droid.
yeah, he's just so
I have
wholesome.
this, and it's like one of my prized possessions since we're showing things. It's the family stone.
I love
Yeah.
that. That is
So
so
there's
good.
this amazing like Star Wars like creator. She does like shirts and pins and accessories and all kinds of things. And when she posted this, I was like, oh my gosh, I need that.
I
And
can't.
it's a fan of. And I was following her Instagram, and she'll do like certain releases and she'll do times like this is the time. And my brain never remembers those things. And so the first, or I think maybe it was like 2 full releases of this, I missed it because I kept forgetting to like set a timer to log in, or like I just, it was like, oh, I need that. That's cool. And then it's like out my brain.
Yeah,
God. And so she did a pre-order, and I messaged her and was like, oh my gosh, like you have saved my life because my ADHD brain never remembers to get on when you do your releases. Thank you for doing a pre-order. Like I'm ordering it now, and it's beautiful and I love it.
that
So,
is
and it
really
has
really
Chopper on it.
incredible. I was looking at somebody who does a 3D printed version of it, and like that they then like um put the mural on, because I was thinking like with some of like my little like figures from Rebels and like Sabine and stuff, how cool it would be to like try and remake the scene from Rebels and Ahsoka where she's standing in front of it, but doing it with like
Yeah.
figures.
Yes, that would
And
be so cool.
so I've been looking at people who like 3D print them and stuff like that, because I would love to have one, just because I loved Rebels so much. And that's another thing about the whole Clone Wars thing. If people are like, "Hey, you really, 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 really need to watch Rebels or Clone Wars," because I watched Rebels without watching Clone Wars, and so like there's characters there that like I wasn't exactly connected with because I didn't see them, before, but I just loved
Yeah.
Rebels so much, and like the characters, and I
It's
love
so good.
Hera. I love Hera, and I love Kanan,
Mhm.
and like of course, as you said, everyone's favorite little evil, not evil, but um, well, maybe a little bit. Chopper. He only has the best intentions. Uh,
I
but
mean, he's just saving the day, killing one stormtrooper at a time.
it's fine, and sometimes just blowing up a whole ship. It's fine.
Oh, that scream though that they have, that's like ah, when they fall down the thing. It's like, I think it's literally the audio from one of the original Star Wars movies, because I've talked about this with somebody, and they reuse it like when stormtroopers fall down, and
Yeah,
it still to this day it's like one of the best things ever,
it's
especially when it's because of Chopper.
yeah, and it's one of those things now that it's like an Easter egg. Like you watch every new Star Wars comes out, and you're like, okay, I've got to see where it's going to be at, because I know it's going to be in here somewhere. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but Rebels I just love so much, and like the characters from it, and so I just really, really, really want to do that. Because
Have you watched The
another
Bad Batch at all, or are you going to do
no, I
that
haven't
after
yet.
Clone Wars?
Yeah, I want to do it after Clone Wars. I did try to start Bad Batch when it first came out, but like I realized like wait,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm definitely not here yet, because like I know that they're introduced like in an episode of Clone Wars, and so like I didn't feel like I just wasn't connected to them enough yet to like to jump in on that.
Yeah.
And so I figure like my plan is, because I'm just in season 1 of Clone Wars right now, because I'm trying to do where it's in chronological order, not release order, where it's like some of the episodes are like jumbled up, and so I'm trying to do it that way. And so right now
I
it's
tried and I was like, I can't.
it's a
This
little
is too
crazy.
much for me. So
Yeah,
I just watched it in
it's a lot.
release order.
It's a lot, and I might end up doing that because right now it's a lot to go back and forth, because it's
Yeah.
like, oh, you need to watch season 1, but then you need to watch 3 episodes from season 3, and then you go back to season 1, and then you need to watch an episode from season
But
2,
it
and
like
then
slows down a little bit, right?
yeah.
It's
Yeah, it
like
does slow
mostly in the
down.
beginning, it's the worst. And then
Yeah.
it like gets more chronological, I think, right?
Yeah, and I think what it is like after season 2 maybe, I think it, and well, and a little bit of season 3. I think from that point on, I think it's pretty much in order. So like I'm thinking if I can just get through like the first season is really where it jumps around the most, I think. So if I can like just get through that and keep doing this, I think I'll be able to like
Yeah.
keep it up later on. Um but I
You'll
mean
be
I've really
golden.
enjoyed. Yeah, and and what I've seen of Clone Wars so far is, I'm like I said, I'm not very far in. I really have enjoyed, like, and I don't know why I never watched it whenever I was growing up, because I was like right in like I was right in the age range for it. I was right, I was the target demographic. I was, like a Star Wars fan. I was, a kid. I was like right where, like, when they were releasing it, like who they were saying like, hey, we're putting these commercials out because these are for you. And I don't know why I never got into it, because I loved the figures. Like I have a bunch of like the Clone Wars figures they did, and the characters and the aliens and stuff. And but I just never watched the show. I could just never get into the show. And I mean, maybe it was because like growing up I was a like, even though I was kind of like born, more like prequel era, the first Star Wars I always watched was the original trilogy. So like I was always very partial to the original trilogy of like characters and stories. And not that I didn't do, make stories with stuff from the prequels too, because
Yeah.
I did a lot. I was Anakin so many times. And like specifically for whatever reason, I always like to recreate the scene where he like jolts awake from the nightmare. Like I just remember like I would be like, okay, all the lights have to be off. I'm getting over here. I'm covering up, and then I'm just gonna jolt awake. And then I was like, okay,
Yeah.
now we can do this. And then I would just continue going. And I was like, I don't know why
And
that
you're
was
like, and
always a
now
scene
the
that I
next
was like,
thing.
and now the next thing. And I would do that, and it was Anakin, and then I would do with I would go to my grandparents' house and I would host Jedi training sessions with my papa, where I was Luke and I had my lightsaber and I had to train him to be a Jedi.
Oh my
And
gosh, I love it.
and the funniest part about this story is that he had his own character, because I told him, you need your own name. If I'm going to be, there were times where I wasn't Luke. There were times where I was Boba Fett, because I had the helmet and the blaster, and I was like, I'm Boba Fett. And so we would do this, and I was like, you need to be a bounty hunter. You need a bounty hunter name. And it needs to be your own character. I get to be Boba Fett, but you have to be your own guy. Like, you're not Bosk, you're not Dengar, you're your own character. And so I gave him a clone trooper helmet, because I was like, hey, that's kind of cool. Like a bounty hunter that's like taking a clone trooper helmet and wears it and stuff. And I was like,
Yeah.
but you have to come up with the name. And so the name that he came up with was from a car commercial, because he decided that his bounty hunter name was going to be Ewick LeSabre instead of Buick LeSabre. So his name as a bounty hunter was Ewick LeSabre. And we've talked about this a bunch, and he tells me this all the time when we talk about it. He's like, and you looked at me and you said, that is a great name. That is a great bounty hunter name. We're keeping it.
I mean, honestly, it sounds like one of those like auto-generated names that you get when you're playing like Knights of the Old Republic or something.
Yes.
So, I mean,
Yes.
I feel like it's legit.
Right. And so he was Ewick LeSabre, and so then Ewick LeSabre continued into my Star Wars toy stories whenever we would play, and I would set up, the scenes. I had this not even a Star Wars figure. It was I don't even know what brand. It was kind of like the action figures, like they sell at like Dollar Generals and stuff, and like the budget action
Mm-hmm.
figures. It was like one of those, but it was like a military set of some sort, and it was just this guy, and I still have the figure upstairs. Um, and I was like,
Like
you know what?
off-brand GI Joe or something.
Yeah, it was. Yes, that's exactly what it was like. It was like off-brand GI Joe, and I was like, this guy now. Whenever we play with toys, this is Ewick Saber because that character is too good. He's not just staying, you know, in our play, like fit like playing stories kind of thing. He's going into our toys, our toy stories here.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, I love it. You need to
and
like get a picture of your grandfather and have like when they turn like pets or people into like Star Wars characters,
yes, and
like
do it.
you should do that.
One year
Make like a
for
bounty hunter one.
Yes, one year for his birthday, I made a picture. I did a toy photography picture with that action figure holding a clone trooper helmet, in like a cantina setup that I did,
That's
and I gave
amazing.
that to him for his birthday, so that he has it like still hanging on his wall on the wall at their house,
Oh, I love that.
of like a little toy photography picture with Ewick Saber. But it's just it's so funny. He was like, "You said that was the best name ever," and he was like, "And it's just a car. It's just a car without it's just a Buick instead of Buick." But it was
I
so
love
good.
it.
Like it was so fun, and it's like just
It's
little things
just,
like that.
it's, yeah. The
Uh,
memories with family, those are some of my core memories is either watching Star Wars with family or doing something Star Wars related and watching the originals. And I was old enough to really understand Luke forgiving his father and believing in him. And when I really could like mentally understand that concept, how bad Darth Vader was, and how forgiving Luke was, and how he believed in him and believed that there was light still in him. I remember crying in a bathroom and my mom talking to me about it. I don't remember our exact conversation, but just being so emotionally invested in it and it emotionally hitting me the impact and the depth of forgiveness on that level. And I don't know, it's moments like that. Like you had said this before, like it is defining moments that carry with you into adulthood, even.
yeah, and I always find it sometimes interesting what like our minds decide to hold on to of like
Mm-hmm.
defining moments. Like because it's things that sometimes just seem like why is this something my brain decided to hold on to, remembering like the way somebody's house smelled, and or something like that you're like, I remember that, and I can still think about that, and I can keep that, but like why did my brain decide to hold on to that one? Why is that still there?
Mm-hmm.
And and things like that, and like you said with like Star Wars and keeping things and just defining moments, and like, and I wouldn't really say this is like a defining moment, but it's like one of the biggest things that I've loved in more recent years for me as a music person. My dad's a musician. I played in
Mm-hmm.
orchestra whenever I was in elementary and middle school. And then I moved schools and they didn't have an orchestra; they had a band. Because I had played cello. So I played clarinet for a little while, because the sheet music was the same, and so I didn't have to learn new note placement. It was just the same, and I just had to learn the fingerings for the notes. And
Yeah.
so music has always been there, like it's always been everywhere around me, and so like I dabble a little bit in like making music and stuff, nothing with like lyrics or anything. Like I play more into like trying to do some like orchestral things and things like that. um and but the music of Star Wars, of course, has been so like prominent for me. Like,
Yeah.
the biggest one for me, now that it's like the one that always hits me the most when I hear it is Leia's theme. It always hits the hardest, I feel like, especially like, Luke and Leia's theme from like Return of the Jedi, always hits me really hard. Um, but it's one of those things that I have been able to go a few times. There's a thing that as a symphony about a couple hours
Mm-hmm.
away. Same place where that toy store that I found my Holy Grail X-wing at. Um,
I love
it was at.
it.
It's up there. It's in that same city. Um, and other places do this too. They do a yearly concert, but it's Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yes,
what they
yes,
do is
yes.
it's
We
like they
have
do.
Return of the Jedi this year happening where I live.
Yes, it's so good. It's so good. So I've seen Empire. I've seen Return of the Jedi
Mm-hmm.
and Last Jedi that way. We didn't get to make it for Force Awakens when it came out, or whenever they did it. But it was like the first time I was there, and it was weird because, like watching the movie, you forget that there's a live orchestra playing all the music. And so it's like here I am watching
Yeah.
like with Empire. I'm watching, you know, the AT-ATs, they're walking closer and you're hearing all this music and stuff, and then you look down and you remember, oh wait, that music is happening right there. Like it's right in
It's
front of me.
here.
And
Yeah.
like it's like it's here. And like I'm hearing these things and hearing these themes like the Imperial March. I'm hearing it and they're playing it right there and it's like cold chills. And like I remember the first time that like Leia's theme played whenever it was in Empire. And I was like, that one that hit hard. That hit really hard. Because there is times where
Mm-hmm.
you're sitting there and like the fanfare starts at the beginning and it's like, whoa. Because it's like it's right there, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just crazy. Like it's a wild experience. And it's become like a yearly thing now, or because they always do. I don't know about where you're at here,
Mm-hmm.
or the one we go to. It's always December, and it's
Okay.
always the weekend before New Year's, or it's like
Okay. That's
it's kind
cool.
of like in there, So it's always something we can kind of plan, but between Christmas and New Year's, we can kind of work it in here, and it's a good little thing, and it's become a yearly thing. Um, this year I'm assuming that they'll do Rise of Skywalker this year, and then I'm really hoping that they restart back over with the prequels, and then I can go through all the prequels and all I can get back up because I haven't seen New Hope yet, and then just go through,
Yeah.
full circle, and I mean that'd be like, you know, 9 years of going to the symphony every
I
December,
love
but
it.
it's just really, 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 really cool.
Yes. If
To sit
anybody
there.
is in a place that does it, please go see it.
Yes.
It is incredible. It is just another experience. And you genuinely get to see two all generations come together and watch a Star Wars movie because people bring their kids and like a lot of times the local 501st or Rebel Legion sometimes will be there too.
Yep.
And so you can take pictures with different characters and it's just such a cool experience. Like where I live, they do it and it's an outdoor venue.
Ooh.
So it's normally in the fall because it can be very hot where I live in the summer. And so it's normally in the fall. And so it just where it gets a little kind of brisk at night and it's so nice. Like pick a perfect time to do it. But yeah, it's so for me, it's Return of the Jedi this fall where I live. And then they did Empire, and then there was kind of a big gap because they started it with A New Hope, and they did that the 40th year anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were several years that they didn't do one. They did other movies with the symphony instead. And then now they're coming back and doing the Star Wars, and I'm really excited
Yeah,
because I
it's
love
so
it.
exciting.
Because I also love
Yeah,
music and I have dabbled with music stuff throughout my life. And I love the symphony and I love going and There's a little bit of a music nerd in me that gets a little frustrated when people leave early. Okay, guys, this isn't a movie. This isn't a concert. It's
Right.
a symphony.
Right. It's
So
different.
wait
It's
and
different.
clap and let them bow,
And
and
let
then
them
you
bow.
clap
And then
again. Like
yeah,
it's a
and then
whole
yeah,
thing.
and then they sit down and then they stand up and you clap again when they bow. And it's like then the conductor walks off and walks back out and they do it again. And like you gotta stay. There's a whole thing.
Oh, this isn't
Like
just going to a movie with live music. Anyway, it's
right,
just like
no.
people not really knowing. But my musical nerdness comes out, and I'm like,
You can't leave.
clapping, silently
Don't do that.
judging people leaving early.
But yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm like, these
Uh,
are the rules. You're not doing the
like this
rules.
is not how this works. This is not how this works. Last year, they had a local 501st and Mando Mercs group there, and so
Mm-hmm.
they had somebody as Thrawn, they had somebody as Bo-Katan,
That's
which was
amazing.
really cool, and then they had somebody as Darth Vader, um, there. But this person as Darth Vader, I think had I don't know how they did it. I think maybe they did it similar to how they do in like the Disney parks, where they have like the different voice lines for the characters as they come around. Which I've
Mm-hmm.
never been, but I've seen people like the interactions and stuff where
Yeah.
they have like the different voice lines and whatnot. And but this guy like in the Darth Vader costume had like lines that would come out like spoken when you'd walk up and you'd be like come up and it would like he would respond to you, but it was like you could tell, but it was like James Earl Jones's voice, which was weird because it was like it wasn't you could tell it wasn't just like some of those have like the voice changer where it's like somebody else's voice and then it's kind of like deepened and like changed, but it was like actually James Earl Jones's voice saying like these lines, and it was really kind of weird because it's like, okay, Darth Vader, I'm gonna stand here and take a picture, and then we're just gonna like, okay, you sound like Darth Vader, so we're gonna like, but it was really cool. It was
It's
really cool.
scary.
It was weird. It was a little weird.
Especially when they're like tall. So the last time I was at Galaxy's Edge, I have been lucky enough to get to go twice. And the last time I was there, I did not get harassed by Kylo, which was very sad for my life. But I did get hit on by the stormtroopers, which I was like, I'm very confused right now because normally they're really mean to you. And I got told that I had a nice likeness, and I really didn't know what to do. I like just like stood there, and I was like they walked away, and I looked at my friend, and I went, "And did I just get hit on by a stormtrooper?" And
like, I did not.
like, I think you did. I was like, that was kind of weird. I don't know what to do about that, but it was really funny. Like
you're
it
like, of
was.
all the things I had prepped for, this was not it.
This was not
This
one
is
of
not
them
it.
because
Not
they
one
like
of them.
harass you and yeah, and they're
Yeah.
like mean and stuff. And I wish that we had waited around because I guess like I was looking at like Disney blogs and Galaxy's Edge blogs later, and they were saying that like you have to wait around. I don't know if this is true. It's what I read on the internet, so I don't know if it's true or not. But some people were claiming that Kylo likes a big entrance, which fits his character. And so if people aren't waiting around for him, like in a certain area, like he doesn't come out. And so
Oh.
I was like, dang it, we should have waited around longer. Because like I literally had a shirt that said Kylo on it, and I was like, he would have come out and it would have
It's
been
like,
like
and he
great.
would have been.
But the
We would have
first time I went,
talked.
right, it would have not been him yelling at me like the first experience I had. Like, it's intimidating, like you were talking about with like the Darth Vader. Like, this guy, this cast member, to the T had it down. I mean, literally walks up to you, and I mean, like, yeah, I mean, he had a little bit of a platform to his boot to make him like taller, but he was at least 6 something without that. And like, big guy, really tall. I mean, full mask, full everything. Like, it's intimidating, even though, like, as an adult, especially, you're like, this isn't real. Like, you know, it's not real. but it's still like really intimidating. And like, I mean, he even did like that like arm movement that he does in the
That's
movies, like when he gets
crazy.
mad and he like moves his arm. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this guy literally had like Kylo down 100%. And he like got in my face and was like yelling at me and pointing at me. And I like had a video of it. And my video is like this awkward place, like on his abdomen because like I'm short and I'm just standing there with my phone and I'm like, what do I do right now?
You're like, I
And
don't know
then
what to do.
after all that's done, I like look up and my husband is just like dying laughing. And he goes, was that the best day of your life? And I was like, yeah, pretty much. I just got harassed by Kylo Ren. I can check that off.
You're like
off of
that's
the
off the
list
list.
now.
Now just to get on Kylo's good side next time. But
Right, which I thought I was doing with the shirt, and then I didn't stay
and
there
then
long enough, but it's
yeah.
fine.
My goal is to get to Galaxy's Edge because I know when I get there, it's going to be dangerous because I'm not going to want to leave
It
there.
is.
I'm not going to want to leave there
It's dangerous.
when I'm just surrounded by like 360 degrees of Star Wars. Like,
It's
and like
amazing,
there's the
yeah.
Millennium Falcon and I can go build a lightsaber and like I know I'm not going to want to leave and I know it's going to be very bad, not just for me who doesn't want to leave, but I just also know that my wallet will not be happy because
Just save a lot of money before you go.
yeah, it's like this. It's like
That's
I
the
will.
best advice that I can give anybody
It's like I will eat
is just
ramen.
save the money and like yeah.
It's like I'm only eating
And like
ramen.
but like another good tip too is which I just figured this out and I was pretty proud of myself because now I see a lot of like Disney planner people telling people to do this. But Olga's Cantina stays open later than the park. And you still have to do like reservations for the tables. So we booked our reservation for like 9:30, which is after the park. The park closes at 9. And so like the whole time you're waiting, you still get to be in Galaxy's Edge. And at that point,
Oh,
there's like nobody else there except people that are like waiting for the cantina. And so you can get some really, because you like pictures, you can get some really cool pictures of Galaxy's Edge at night without like a crowd
that's
during that time, like
nice.
before and after, because they don't really like kick you out until like they're completely done with Olga's Cantina. But that's a good like tip too, because I feel like that stretches like your park ticket a little bit
Right.
too, you know?
Yeah, because you get a little bit of extra time and a
So
more like special time. I feel like with like it being a little less
yeah.
busy and like But yeah, thank you. I'll have to remember that whenever I go to do that
Yeah.
because
And you
that's
can
like
hear all the sounds better too. Like I love sound effects and background noise and that kind of thing. And so I love Batu at night because especially when people aren't there, like if you do the cantina thing, because you can hear all the like chirping noises and the creatures and like all the things that you can hear it when people are there, but it's just like you feel even more like you're somewhere else when kind of that crowd noise is gone a little bit. I don't know. It's just magical. It's just really cool.
yeah, I know like my two things I want to do at Disney. I want to ride the Haunted Mansion and I want to go to Galaxy's Edge.
Hmm.
Those are my things. Those are like my bucket list Disney items is Haunted Mansion
I
and
feel like you need
Galaxy's
to add
Edge.
another one
Which
because
one?
I think you would like it. You need to do the Jungle Cruise.
Oh, I do need to do Jungle Cruise. No, I do need Jungle Cruise. That is on there because I would.
Because I feel like you like dad jokes too, probably.
Yeah. No, I've seen so many videos lately of people of like people on the ride and the things that their skippers have been saying, and it's like I do. I want to be there. Like
They're
I want to
hilarious.
experience that. Like I want to be there. I want to do that.
Should add that to your list of to-dos when you
Yeah,
go
I
to
need to add
because
Jungle
it's a fun
Cruise.
ride.
Yeah, Haunted Mansion. I've just always had like this fascination with the Haunted Mansion, like with like just its
Yeah.
history, and then like, its kind of development process and stuff like that. Because like they have that show
Yeah, that's a good one too.
on Disney Plus that is that Behind the Attraction, where they go in and like the whole history and the development of like the different
Yes.
rides and stuff. And I remember watching that when it came out, and it was just so interesting to see like the development for
Mhm.
each of these things, and like to see some of the things like they're doing like now with um like the Hondo animatronic that I've seen videos of, that's like crazy, like with the way it moves and like
And like
all
the
these things.
Ray like there's a hologram.
Yes, that's on the Rise of the Resistance, isn't it? Is that the one where that one's at the hologram?
Yes. It's like I could be completely stupid. Okay, I could be completely stupid in saying this, but I'm pretty sure it's a legitimate hologram because I remember my husband was like, because like he loves techie things and he loves technology and that kind of stuff. And he was like, is that a hologram? And I remember him looking around to see if anyone was
Like,
looking and like doing his hand like this, and there's nothing there. Like,
that's
it's a hologram.
weird. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Like, I don't know how.
I
Like,
don't think you're supposed to do that. He's like, I couldn't help it. I had
like,
to see.
like, this was like the thought came in, it happened, there was no stopping it. Um,
Yeah. And
I
he's
don't
like
know
tall,
how.
so he's tall enough that he could
Like,
reach
like,
that pretty easy. But like, I'm like, I couldn't jump and reach up there.
I
But
don't know
yeah,
how
it's
they're.
cool. It's cool.
Yeah, I don't know how their Imagineers like develop some of the things they do for like these rides and for parts of the park. And like they did, and I think they've used it other places, and it might be on Rise of the Resistance, I can't remember, but I remember seeing videos from whenever they did the Star Cruiser hotel thing, that like they had
Hmm.
Rey but with her lightsaber that like actually ignited from like nothing to like ignite
Hmm.
it, like, and I'm like, you're just making like almost real lightsabers over here at Disney. And meanwhile, like I'm just here like in the kitchen and cooking my ramen for lunch, and like they're making real
Hey, and
lightsabers, and I'm
making
like,
some really cool pictures.
and really cool pictures occasionally.
Don't sell yourself short.
And it's like I just want the lightsaber for one day. I'll bring it back. I just want it for one day, just to play around with it, and then I'll bring it back. Just let me borrow
I'd
it.
hurt
Like,
myself.
like, I just want to slice bread. That's all I want to do. I just want to slice and toast bread at the same time. It's just all in one. Just slice and toast
I
and
can't
slice and
even be
toast.
trusted with like, the toy lightsabers. I
Yeah,
don't need a real one.
I have a couple that I do sometimes swing around in the living room, and it normally does result in me almost hitting the TV most of the time. So
Yeah, I'm a very clumsy individual and I'm very prone to being kind of klutzy and yeah, there were some really really cool guys that I met before I had a photo op with Hayden Christensen at MegaCon. And they were like showing me all their lightsabers and they were so cool. And they were like, we're right behind you. You can use one of these if you want in your picture. And I'm like, guys, you don't understand. Like, I'm already nervous. Like, this is like teenage dream come true for me. I don't need to be walking in there with a stick. Like, I know it's not a stick, it's a lightsaber, but like,
but the last
I
thing I
will
want to
hurt
do,
someone and it will be memorable for all the wrong
and the
reasons.
last thing I want to do is that someone I'm going to injure to be Hayden Christensen at a con. Okay, like
Yeah.
that's not how I want to spend my photo op with Hayden Christensen. Is me
Bye.
Christensen is me making sure he's okay because he's on the ground because I hit him with a lightsaber.
Yeah,
I
I know.
I've been to a few cons to meet some Star Wars people, because there's a couple cities within a range, because where I'm at is kind of almost borderline middle of nowhere. I'm like 2 hour 2 hours or so from like any like big cities. So really, a city about 45 minutes away from me, just a few years ago started doing their own Comic-Con. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but so I've been to a few of the ones in the other cities. My first one was to meet, and I was a teenager. My first one was to meet Peter Mayhew and Billy D. Williams.
That's
And
amazing.
Peter Mayhew, the craziest thing was that, like, sitting down in his seat, he was as tall as I was at the time, as like a
Yeah.
early teenager. Like, he was every bit as tall as I was as he was sitting, and he grabbed a Pepsi can because he had a Pepsi can, and when he grabbed it with his hand, the entire can disappeared. It was gone. His hand was that giant. Like, it just was
Yeah.
like it was like the can was just swallowed up by his hand because he was so just massive. He was just so tall and, like, crazy how big he was. Just, like, wild. Like, to think and then think about, like, on set him as Chewbacca, and to see, like, he was as tall as I was and he was sitting, and then, like, to think if he stood up and then had all that costume on, like, how
Yeah.
insane that had to be. Not just for everyone around him, but for him to have to be in that and film and stay in that. I couldn't imagine that. Like, how crazy it had to be.
Yeah. It's
Like,
a lot. It's hot and I'm sure a little itchy and a little uncomfortable, but I mean, we got Chewbacca
yeah, but
and
we
like
got
that's so
Chewbacca.
great.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, and I've been to a few cons since then. There for a while it was like a I would try and go to one a year, because I found that
Mhm.
while at cons it is a situation where I do mask and it can be overwhelming. Um, I've also found that I'm a little more comfortable at cons because I know that
Mhm.
most of the people there are probably feeling just about as awkward as I am, on some
Yeah,
level.
that's something that I thought about and I even put in my like survey after cuz I've only been to MegaCon. And I live in an area where there really isn't a lot of any of that kind of stuff close to us. So it's always going to be a trip. But that's
Right.
kind of like how it was growing up. Like we really didn't even get a lot of concerts, even. So that was like you had to go somewhere else for. And it's not that much now. Like that's changed a lot. But I think just because of the area I grew up in, like we're just people in this area we're used to traveling to go to those kinds of things because they're just not close normally. Um, but that's one of the things that I put in there was like crowds don't really bother me, but I was like, what if like someone like that's what I even put. I was like, can y'all do like a sensory hour or something? Like they're doing it at stores or doing it at Walmart, like where people can go in and the lights aren't as bright and there's less people and different situations that make it easier and more sensory friendly for people that all of that can be very overwhelming. It's a lot.
Right.
You've got people bumping into you. You've got um just it is a sensory overload. You've got art everywhere. You've got collectibles everywhere. You've got lines going, you don't know where it goes to. There's music, there's food smells. I mean, there's everything is going on. And
Yeah.
so that's one of the things that I put in the survey was why don't y'all do something like this, especially when it is such a big event that so many people come to. Like and I know that's an important part of our community. So like why wouldn't we make it more friendly to somebody that loves Star Wars but might be overwhelmed because of the amount of people? And I know that there's like people could say, "Well, go to a smaller one." But somebody that you might want to see or an artist or a panel or something like that might not be as accessible or might not come to a smaller convention. So while you can tell people to go to smaller ones, that's not like that's not a good answer. I
Yeah,
don't feel
right.
like to that problem. So,
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I do think it would be helpful. Like for me, like I'm definitely not a crowd person. Um I can I can kind of like just zero in on my goal enough to kind of like zone
mhm,
out and kind of like mask my way through that. Like if it's like after a concert or something like that, and it's like trying to get out of the arena or out of where the wherever it's at, or the theater or wherever it's being held at. There's a lot of the times that like that journey out of the building is you're here, you're close by. I can kind of for those like periods of time be like, okay, my goal is to get to the car. So right now I am head down. I'm not looking at what's around me. It is get out of here, get outside to fresh air, and then I can start to kind of space. But at a con, like I don't want to do that because like I'm trying to see like what does this person have and what does this store, or this booth offering, or what kind of toys do they have over here, or things like that. And it can be a lot, especially
mhm,
in the bigger cons, of just like the constant people. And some of those booths get really tiny, and if I'm in there trying to look for figures and then six people come in to this little booth because they're also looking, well then all of a sudden this booth with me and like the owner and maybe one other person has turned into I can barely get back out because there's so many people.
yeah,
And then I get in there and like I'm looking at all of these figures, and like I'm not just there's not just stimuli from all the people and all the noises and the bright lights and things like you mentioned, but like here I am of like looking at a wall of just Star Wars and Star Wars and Star Wars and Star Wars and Star Wars, or whatever I'm looking at, and that can be a lot to try and like get myself zeroed in on,
mhm,
because it's like I want to look here and I want to look there and I want to look there, and then there's like, ooh, well that's caught my eye and that caught my eye, and then I don't want to miss anything in the middle because I'm like jumping to these things that are, jumping out at me, and it can be, a lot to like try and filter through, because it's like I'm
yeah.
dealing with
And
all
it
of
can
that,
take
and
as
then
easy as like someone bumping you to lose like your train of thought of like where you were like looking through
yeah,
the list of all the things. And then it's like, oh, now I have to start over.
yeah, and it's
Do
the
I
same
start
way.
over or do I just leave?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and and it's kind of like the same way like when I read. Like I feel like it's a similar thing of like if I am reading a page and then I hear a noise on the other side of the house, well, I'm going back to the top of the page, or maybe even like the end of
Mm-hmm.
the other page, because I've lost the flow of like where I was at, and then I've got to get back into it. And so like you said, if
Yeah.
there's anything that throws it off, I'm like, this is already overwhelming, but I really want to look at these figures, but this is could be like it could be madness in there, with all the people around. And I
Yeah.
really do, even with things like that, I do love going to cons because I love to see all the different costumes, and I love to see all the different artwork from everybody, and like see what people are creating and see what people are bringing. And you know I love to watch like the cosplay contests when they have them, and to see all these crazy costumes that people make, like crazy
Yeah.
stuff that people do, and I just think it's so cool. But yeah, there are times where I'm like, okay, I need to get out of the main hall. I need to get in the hallway, find a bench away from other people, get something to drink, get like a water or like like a cold pop or something like that, and just relax for a few, and then I can go back in and pick up where I was at. Um,
Yeah.
but
And
it
it's
can
hard
be
too because I think that we've come a long way in our like culture to help destigmatize a lot of things, but there's still a lot of stigma with a lot of diagnosis, it being considered a label instead of helpful information, like parents don't want their kids labeled, but like, does that hurt? Like, there's
right.
so many things that make it hard. And so I know that, like, I think even ADHD can be considered a disability, but that's like now another word, right?
Right.
Another like label in society that people think is negative. And I just wish, this is me getting on my soapbox, that when you get a diagnosis, whether it's mental, physical, that we could just see it as more of like blueprints or information, or a not even, maybe a disclaimer. I don't know, just like more info about how our brain and our body works. Like it doesn't have to be a negative thing. Like it's just more information for me to know about myself so that I can adapt and change different things in order to honestly make life better for myself. That sounds like selfish, but like better for myself and better for those around me. And I really wish that we could take that mindset and also apply it to things like conventions and concerts and different things like that, because some of us might not have something physical that you can see that gives us, maybe some would see as a disadvantage in certain situations. And I wish that that could be recognized as much as like something physical. Which I know there's still a lot of stereotypes and there's still a lot of issues within that. You know, there's ableism too that goes into effect
Right.
with that. And I don't want to sound like that person either. Because like we all have different abilities, and whether it's mental or physical or something that makes us different, it doesn't mean that we don't have the capacity or the ability to do whatever we want to do. But it just might take a little bit of extra steps or little extra things to help us get to that point. It's like,
Yeah.
I wish we could feel comfortable enough with who we are and how our brains work and how different things are, and also feel comfortable to ask people for help in the areas that we need and not be shamed for it, and not be feel like we're less than, or feel like, I don't know, like it's not important.
Yeah. I have always been a massive supporter of just making sure you take care of yourself in every way. Like if if there's something going on, and it's not something that's supposed to be going on, I am the kind of person that's like, then go to the doctor. And if you need somebody to go with you, I'll go with you. Or, I've always been that way. Because one of my close family members has multiple rare medical conditions. And so there were times
Mm-hmm.
where, whenever, especially if I wasn't in school, and I hadn't mentioned this earlier, but like after middle school, just because things, and me and just the way I am, my anxiety had gotten very bad and things were just not really where I needed to be. And so we decided to, for the rest of my high school years, I did homeschooling so that we could kind of, again,
Mm-hmm.
tailor my learning to where I needed to be and what I needed to be and how it needed to be. But so throughout a lot of that time, and then like, summer breaks before that, whenever I wasn't in school, I was the appointment. I went with I went with them to the appointments. So I had a firsthand experience of like seeing these doctors and seeing these rare medical conditions and how much it is managing them, and what it takes to manage them. And so that's another thing that I've always been very like, anybody around me that's like, hey, I think this is going on, I'm like, well, then you might want to go get it, go get checked out, because I just always look at that and I'm like, I've seen, the hot, like, the further sides of this, of like some of these rare conditions, and you know some of the trips to find the right doctors, or the doctors that just don't listen and are like, yeah, that's not what's
Mm-hmm.
going on and we're not really worried about it, or things like that. So I am always like, yes, go take care of yourself, protect your physical health, your mental health, everything. You have to do what you need to do. And when I came out of middle school, I was in therapy for a time, and I know how much that helped then, to keep me, even just, there were some of those times that I was just in there and I would just talk about movies. I didn't
Hmm.
necessarily talk about anything that was going on, but just having a space that was a dedicated outlet to talk about anything, whether it was negative things that were going on, or negative things I was feeling, or positive things I was feeling, or just, how excited I was for this movie that was coming out later that year. It was a space that was for that, and
Yeah.
and I found that how important that was, you know, for me. And it's not something that I've had to do in recent years. I've been able to, I'm at a point right now where what I feel I'm able to manage. But, if it would get to the
Hmm.
point that I'm like, okay, things are at a point where I can't handle it, my anxiety is going up, I'm feeling like I'm not in, like, I don't have a grip on all these things, or I'm not understanding these things the way I need to, I would absolutely not hesitate to go like, hey, I'm gonna try and find, somewhere to go. And and if that wasn't a right fit, then I would, try and find another, because you have to connect with that person. Like, it can't be, that's not something you want to force into, like, oh,
Yeah.
this is okay. You don't want it to just be okay. You
Yeah.
want it to make sure it's a person that you're like, I trust this person, I can tell this person these things, and I trust what this person has to offer. And when it comes to, plans of like, how are we going to handle this, or
Hmm.
things like that. But I do also understand where you're talking about, of like, not wanting to, or not feeling like worthy, or not feeling like you want to take these things, because I feel like, there are days, of course, where like, I my ability to like function, I feel like, isn't as high or where I want it to be some days. 'Cause some days I'm like, yeah, this is
Yeah.
a day that I'm not gonna have much in me. And then there's other days where I'm like, oh, I could go forever and ever, and it'd be fine. Um, but I do feel like, when it comes to like some of those things, that I'm like, oh, but I don't want to take up anyone else's time. Of like, this could be space that someone else who really needs it today could have it.
Hmm.
And I don't want to be the person to take that up. I don't want to be in their way, and I don't want to do
Right.
this. And I'm like, I don't want to take up anybody else's space, that like, oh, well, this person over here that I don't know probably needs it more than I do right now. So I don't want to like take that from them. And it's
Yeah.
yeah, and it's not like,
Or I
it's
don't want people asking me, like, why do you get this? You look fine. Like,
yeah,
or
and
different things like that.
yeah, and and most of the people that are around me, know that I am autistic. Um, it's not something, and like I think I had told you, it's not something that I've really ever like hidden. It's just something that I never
Hmm.
know how to organically bring up in conversation. Like, cuz like, I don't want it to just be like, yeah, you want to go out to lunch, and it's like, yeah, we're just going to talk about stuff, and it's like, by the way, I'm autistic. And then it's like, we just like wall hit
Hi.
conversation. Hi, I'm autistic. And like, it's just like, I couldn't even do the hi. Like, the greeting would be the worst part. I couldn't even get through that. I was like, wouldn't be able to do that. That would be terrible. That would be torture. Um, but it's like, it's just, it's one of those things that like, I've never felt like I wouldn't talk about it, or that I didn't want to talk about it, because like, I always, kind of like you were talking about earlier too, just a few minutes ago. I I know that there are obviously things that are negative, you know, but like, there are days where I just, social anything doesn't work, I'm not picking up on the social cues. I'm not picking up on, the things. I'm not, checking those off, and I'm not really picking up on them.
Yeah.
But, you know, I wholeheartedly feel though too that being autistic has helped in what I want to do as my career. Because I am a photographer. I do have my own small business, my own little small photography business. Um, and just having that and really having grown up with that part of me being nourished in like, encouraged to find,
Mhm.
my look at the world, and try and
Yeah.
show my look at the world. Not, because the negative things aren't there, but, even with the negative things, to show like my perspective. And, you know, it's always, I think I've kind of always destined to be behind a camera in some sort. Ever since I was younger, with kind of, essentially directing all of my family members in recreations of Star Wars things, and then, making giant battles or giant, action figure cities in the floor or on the table. Um, doing the same thing with like Legos. Whenever I would play with Legos, it would be, I would take up the entire dining room table, and it would be edge to edge with buildings and characters and things like that. And so whenever photography did come on the picture, and I was like, on the picture, that was not intentional. Photography came on the
I
picture, but that was a good one, brain.
love it.
Um, once it did, come onto the scene, it I realized that it was something that I kind of immediately connected with. Um,
Mhm.
I doodled, I did things like that. I doodled and I did that, but I never really connected with it like I wanted to draw or like I wanted to do art, in that kind of sense. That was never what clicked. I loved to do my little doodles, and I still love to doodle and do things, especially when I'm just doing like little busy tasks or
Mhm.
listening. I doodle and try and keep myself busy, or have action figures and fidget with them.
Yeah.
Um, but photography, whenever I started doing that, it's the one that stuck. And like
Mhm.
my parents had a camera, so they let me play around with that one. It was like a little point and shoot, a little camera that took like one AA battery, and you put a little SD card in. And so I started doing stuff with that. And then as I continued with that, they were like, okay, well, we'll get you a step up. And so they found me the next step up. And around that time was whenever I started doing like toy photography and really started doing that. And they were like, okay, so, from this point on, as long if you keep up with it, you keep making money, this will be, we've got you to this point. Now you can start making money and really saving towards what you think is your next step, whether, that's camera or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, I started saving up, and then later on I got like my first DSLR, a couple of years after that. And then, um, I've kept that one for a few years and kept saving and stuff and got the camera I have now. Um, but it was one of those things that it was, of all the things that I've tried and that I've, done throughout the years, music has always stayed there and photography has always stayed there. And music has kind of changed its shape in my life, where it started out, I played cello, and then now it's moved in that I kind of, make some other, little stuff and post them occasionally on YouTube, not very often. But, it's one of those things that, um, it's just, photography really just became like the main one. And so when I went to school for it, well, not specifically for photography, the degree was technically called electronic media. And it focused on
Yeah.
video production and audio production and everything. So it was like focusing on like how they do live broadcast shows, like news and all this kind of stuff. And then my second semester was like documentary work or film work and things like that, and it kind of focused more in that area. And so that really helped, further my understanding of like looking through a lens, and training myself to think like, oh, if I'm going to use this lens on my camera, I need to frame it this way. It really helped me learn to look through, the lens, and I kind of did that already, like, because as a
Mhm.
kid and being, autistic, one of my big things was communicating with TV shows and movies.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times my way to communicate was using dialogue from the scenes or in TV or movies that I was watching. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things that it stuck. To me it's always been to me like I'm viewing the world through a camera, you know. Like it's one of those things that I feel like it was always like there. It was just a matter of taking the steps to get to that point. And then when I got to
Hmm.
that point, you know, it continued to grow and continued to grow, and then it, developed into, you know, my hobby with toy photography, and I do enjoy doing like nature photography and things like that. I like to go on hikes, and most of the time also bring figures with me on the hikes. But
I love it.
it's not only that, but also into my career with having my own little my own small business and doing photography and things like that. It's kind of wild to look at the me who wouldn't talk to anybody whenever I was younger, and even didn't talk to anybody when I started at college. I had classes
Hmm.
with plenty of people, and my first semester I pretty much talked to no one. Like, I came to class, I did my thing because I started college. I took a year off, and then I started in the fall of 2019. So it was middle of pandemic. I had classes were socially distanced and with masks, and most of my classes were online. But a couple of my
Yeah.
video classes had to be hybrid, because we had labs that had to be done in the studio on campus. And so, here I am, like, with my mask on, and I'm like, this is perfect, because this right here is a perfect reason why I don't even have to talk to anybody, because my mouth, my mouth is just covered. I am just, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to see them really. They don't have to see me. We could just come to class and we can go out. But it
Yeah.
did, and the longer I was there, though, I did slowly start to open up, especially in the second semester when I had more classes with those same people that were in my program, in classes where we really had to work together more. I opened up
Yeah.
a little bit, you know, but it was it was weird though, like getting there and realizing like, oh, I can open up to these people because we're all here for the same degree. We all have kind of the same end goal. And it's okay
Yeah.
to kind of open up and get to know these people a little bit better. And then my last semester at the college, I joined the gaming club for like half a semester. And then I graduated, and
Nice.
I was out. So I did finally join a club for half a semester.
Hey,
But
hey,
it
it's
was
it's it's an
it was
accomplishment,
good.
even
It
if
was
it's a
good.
short period of time,
Yeah,
right?
and went there and played Mario Kart like on a couple Fridays a month, and
That's awesome.
but it was one of those things that now I've realized, like, hey, if I want to do something like that in the future, I can just prepare myself, and I can do it. And once I adjust and I get
Yeah.
to know people there, I know that it's not going to be exactly comfortable at the start whenever I'm surrounded by a bunch of people I don't know, or maybe just one or two people I do,
Right.
but like, I know that it'll get there. The more I'm there, and the more those
Yeah.
people will become familiar, and then it'll get there.
I think that is great reminder for a lot of things that you start off small and it gets to the point you want it to be. And it's just being patient with yourself and patient with what's going on, and knowing that, like, giving yourself that time and that space and being patient with yourself in the long run is like the healthiest way to do it
Yeah,
too. Because
yeah,
you'll have less anxiety and you'll have less stress, and it's a slower process. And I'm can be very impatient and I want things to happen right away. Um, but I don't feel like things that always happen super quickly right away have even as much, like, I don't know, like, it's it feels more special, I guess, like, when things take a little bit longer. Like, it
yeah,
feels more real. It feels like you put the work into it, I don't know, like it just has more of a meaning to it when there's a little bit of a struggle there. That seems like kind of weird to say, but
But
I
no,
think
but
it just makes it a little bit better.
yeah, I agree. Doing it at my own pace is like I don't feel like it's happening on my terms, so it's like more easily accepted, I guess, is like what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we can compare our paces to other people's paces, and we're never going to be happy, and we're always going to feel behind in some capacity.
Yeah.
And when you accept where you are, and you can have a goal, you can have like a destination that you want to get to, but accepting like the best way for you to get there and knowing that it might look different than someone else doesn't make it bad, and doesn't make like I struggle with feeling like a failure a lot of the times when I compare myself to other people. And like, so I have to remind myself that I'm not failing. It's just a process and it just takes time. And I just have to be patient with myself, and going at my pace and what I'm comfortable at is going to get me to that destination. Normally, the odds are more in my favor that way than if I try to rush something and go quicker. I'm going to get burnt out. I might make mistakes along the way. I might not grow as much. it's it's a quicker result, but it's not always as satisfying. That's the word that I think I was looking for earlier, is satisfying.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I fully agree.
So, what would you hope that people learn from your
I
story?
would say that I think everyone has an outlet, like something that they can do that is just something that they can just lose themselves in, and they can just kind of let these things out, whether it's music or writing or sewing or anything, whatever it is that you can
Mm-hmm.
do. And I think that it's very important that everybody finds that, um because I think that that really is so important that you have it as an option of like you need just to decompress or just something to spend your time with, and that you don't have to start out with the crazy things. Like, whenever I did started out doing my toy photography, it was, like I said, it was just a little like point and shoot camera. I had a little blue desk lamp that's like a little Pixar style blue desk lamp that I would set up, and it was just that, and I was at a little table in my room, and I'd set up the camera and I would set up the figures and that light, and it was just a gray background. There was nothing crazy or special. And so one of the big things that anytime people ask me about photography, that I always tell them is that just use what you have, because you don't need special things. You don't need the best or the craziest or everything that you have or that you would need, you have with you. Whether, I mean, if you just need to use your phone and you have figures, or you just want to take pictures of landscapes or the leaves, you can just start with your phone and a flashlight, or a lamp,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever you have. Like, the the biggest thing is just that you're creating and you're doing, like, I feel like, is probably my biggest like thing of what I tell people is just make sure you're creating, make sure you're doing, like, whatever it is that you connect with. Like, make sure you make time for that in your life, because like that's been a very important thing for me to have, was making sure like there's that dedicated time. And I just think that it's really, really beneficial when people do like make sure that they specify like this is time for this, and then whatever it is, just you know make sure it's something that you love to do and something you enjoy. And of course, if it's Star Wars related, then that's extra bonus points. um Extra bonus points. um if you can use the Force while you do it, that's even better. But and if you can use the force, I need you to teach me. But it's,
Yeah, same.
yeah, it's like just add me to your list of Padawans, please. Um, but um, it's just you know, I always use this phrase too as like I feel like I generally strive to try my best to be like unapologetically me because I don't even though I do mask whenever I'm like out doing things, I always want to make sure that I'm still not losing all of myself when I do that. Like
Hmm.
I try not to mask all of me away because like I'm me and I still want to be me. Like, um and so that's the other thing, like I guess to like as to kind of like do like the second half of the question. Like the first one is, kind of, figure out what you love to do and and figure out a way to do it and try and incorporate it into your life as much as you can. And then,
Yeah.
just be you because, that's the best you that you can be is you. I don't want, I don't want anybody or I hope that nobody, feels like, you know, or I hope that there is, a time that people don't feel like they have to be someone else. I guess is what I'm saying. Because like even if you have to mask
Yeah.
a little bit, like I have to mask a little bit whenever I'm out places because if I didn't, it would be overwhelming. In some of these circumstances. But
Yes.
I still try to make sure that I'm there. That I'm not masking myself away to the point that I'm like Terminator in Walmart, and I'm like I gotta get point A, point B. You know, um, I try to make sure that there's still some me in there, and I want other people to
Yeah.
know that like that's okay, that you don't get rid of all of you, that like you can mask and make sure you're still there because that's you, and that's who you need to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is great advice and some really good takeaways for people to think about and to remember as they go through their day, not even, watching Star Wars, but real life. Going through your day and you're discovering your passions and what makes you you because I mean even those of us that have like similar conditions or diagnoses or whatever, we're all still unique people and we all have like our unique take and perspective to the world. And I think it is important for everyone to remember that, no matter what it is that you've gone through or where you are, um, we can choose to either change for the better or we can choose to change and it not be very good. And then if you do change for the better, what you do with that time. And like you're saying, using it for something that is beneficial to you and being creative or putting your perspective out there that might not be out there already. I think that is definitely very important and a good reminder for me and for everybody, hopefully watching or listening too. And I am stumped, honestly, trying to think of what question that oh no, I've got
Oh no.
it.
Oh no.
Okay, so if C3PO had a theme song, what would his theme song be?
Hmm. That's a good question.
That's a really hard one. I'm sorry.
Man, I really feel like C3PO would love to listen to "Don't You Forget About Me" because
Yes.
everybody's just leaving him behind everywhere they go. He's getting left behind in the desert. He's getting left behind here. He's getting left behind there, and nobody ever listens to him. And it's just like he's just
So
getting
if he
left.
had a theme song, that could be
It
it.
it would be that. I think it would be that. I think it would be "Don't You Forget About Me." He'd be jamming out to some '80s music, and that one would hit him really hard. I think because he'd realize like, oh wait, yeah, everybody does forget about me because I'm just trying to help them out, and give them the odds and tell them this is a terrible idea, and nobody listens to me,
Mm-hmm.
and they just leave me behind in the desert and leave me behind in danger.
Mm-hmm. His different colored arms and
Yeah, and his
legs that no one notices.
everybody just
You
forgets
probably
about
didn't
him.
recognize
Yeah,
me because my arm is red.
yes, they forgot about him because his arm was a different color, and he got a new red arm, and nobody remembered him. So that's what it is.
80s, he's jamming to 80s. He's like fist pumping to Don't You Forget About Me. We just need to get him a trench coat and he's good to
Yeah,
go.
and he's set. He's golden. He's in the Star Wars Breakfast Club.
He's
Another pun.
golden.
Another accidental pun. Thanks, brain. Thanks, brain. Right on the nose with the puns today. But yeah, no.
Well,
Yeah.
on that note, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and going into detail even more than anyone has to, just being vulnerable and sharing your life experiences and everything that you've gone through, and also the fun side of how Star Wars has been for you and has inspired different things like your photography and just how it's such a comfort place. And it is for me too. And I feel like it is for a lot of people. Star Wars is a place we can go back to, even if there's parts of it that, some people might not like. There's still that comfort movie or that comfort trilogy or show or anything that you can go to and you can watch over and over again and just love it the same as when you watched it the first. So thank you, Layne, so much for coming on and sharing that with all of us.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, and I really do appreciate it. Like I said before, this is something a little different than what I'm used to, but I do really, really, really appreciate you having me come on, and it's never a bad day to spend in the galaxy far, far away. So,
It's not,
it
and that
can't be a bad day.
rhymes.
You can't be a bad day if you're spending some time with some Star Wars, whether it be music or TV or movies or whichever it is. It's never a bad day.
That's so true. Well, thank you so much. And I hopefully can talk to you again sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining me today on Tales of the Force. Our stories of hope is the force of this fandom, and they are a powerful ally to each and every one of us. Life creates them, makes them grow. Their energy surrounds us and binds us together. Don't forget, luminous beings we all are, not this crude matter. May the Force be with you always.